TFA fam, what is up? What is happening? We're back. Got a little guest on tonight. It's not. I don't feel like the fantasy season really begins until we get Debro on to do our annual rankings debate. We've done it like this, is like our third year now. We've done this where we
Yeah.
go in and because we are so opposites on a lot of things that it comes out to be a really good conversation. So Cody is busy, so he couldn't be on tonight. But regardless of that, still happy to have Debro. If you're not familiar, he's over at FantasyPros, does a lot of good work over there, and is very sometimes controversial on Twitter. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I will say
Uh,
this, and I think I said it before, and I'll say it again. I still really appreciate that you have takes that aren't like the sheep herd mentality, right? Like,
mhm.
and you stand by them. Like, you're not like wavering. You're like, oh well, I don't know. Like, you have conviction, and I will listen to anybody all day that has conviction, and whether the take is right or not,
Mhm.
versus somebody that just like kind of does the I'm gonna play the fence and just kind of go in between.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, there's something to be said for the echo chamber because it's out there and it's usually kicked up to 11 and stuff. And then in the moment, I had one of those moments earlier this week when I was like, yeah, I don't think Jordan Addison's very good. And somebody's gonna have to tell me why not, based off of his rookie season numbers. And everybody's like, blah 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 blah. Like all Vikings Twitter came at me, and I was like, okay, like you can call me an idiot, but point to me a number outside of touchdowns where he's good. And whatever, man. I mean, you know how it goes, Kev. I mean, you follow your process and whatever that is, whether you're looking at numbers, you're looking at projections, somewhere in between. And that's where it comes down for me, And so there's a lot of things I'll get right, and there's a lot of things I'll get wrong. Now, everybody loves to talk about all the things I get wrong, but dude, there's plenty of things out there that I've gotten right over the years. And, so we're going to have our hits and misses, and you're just trying to hopefully that the hits outweigh the misses. And, I love doing this show with you every single year. I think there's really good conversations that come out of it. Some of the conversations ends up with you calling me an idiot, which sometimes, guess what? When we look back, sometimes it's well deserved, So yeah, I'm ready to fight.
Yeah, hey, but I will continue. You can continue doing the victory lap on Puka Nakua. I felt like
Oh
you were
man,
the sole pusher of him last off, especially around this time. Just like
speaking of getting hate,
constant,
dude, I got
constant
a
drumbeat.
lot of hate for that. Like when I was like out there talking about him, I remember I had some bets with certain people in the fantasy industry. They were like, "I bet you he doesn't even get 90 targets this year," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll make that bet. Yeah, I'm totally fine to make that bet and stuff." So yeah, I mean, the other thing that, and you know how this goes too, Kev. If you're sometimes the first person to the party about certain players, and then the consensus comes along for the ride, people don't talk about, like, they don't go back and they're not like, oh, you know what, I probably shouldn't have given you so much shit about this player because you were early and it wasn't like a big talking head or somebody like that, or like really like hyping up a player. So sometimes, I always like to quote the Joker. I'm not the monster. I'm not crazy. Sometimes I'm just ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, and you were right. I mean, that was a home run. I was still skeptical of Puka Nakua even as the season was going. Like for like the first month, I'm still like, he's gonna like. I felt like the dude from Major League, like he's gonna fall back to earth. You know he
Mm-hmm.
will. Like this isn't sustainable. And by about like a couple more weeks after, I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm wrong. Like I take the L. Puka Nakua is the real deal. This is wild because like you just don't
Yeah.
see that. Like
No, you
what was he,
don't.
a fifth round pick? And
Yeah.
not to explode as a rookie the way he did. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was like unprecedented. So like I just did not see that, and like I was like, it's got to end
No.
sometime, and it didn't. And
And keeping it real, I didn't even see that. Like, I mean, like, I love the kid and I thought he was going to be awesome and stuff like that. But, like, come on, man. Like, if anybody's out there telling you they saw him breaking rookie records, like NFL rookie season records, shit, they're talking out their ass. Like, I love the kid, but I still didn't even see that. I was like, look, I think he's going to be getting consistent targets. There's nobody behind Cup that I'm really worried about. He's going to start in 3 wide receiver sets from day one. His college analytical profile is really stinking good. The film as well was awesome. So, like, even though I was super high on the kid, and oh man, like I had so much Puka in best ball last year, but like, did I see any of that coming? No, nobody did.
yeah, so all right, let's turn the page from 2023. We are on to 2024. It's gonna be a fun year. ADP is
Mm-hmm.
wild right now. We are talking about that before now, but
Whew.
we have some players that we're different on, and so really at running back, we got some things to talk about. But
Oh,
I
I'm ready.
I don't think it's as crazy. There is one player I want to talk about and get your take on, but I do want to ask you about Patrick Mahomes.
Mm,
You have him at QB5.
okay.
Why are you
Yep.
as low on him as you are?
I mean, I've got him in tier one, and really that entire tier, and it's a long tier one, and really it's kind of like pick your flavor of these guys. Like I've got Jalen Hurts as my QB1 overall, Josh Allen's two, Jackson's three, and then I got Stroud at four. And I think Stroud and Mahomes are kind of really right neck and neck with each other. And I'll look at both of their skill set guys and what those offenses can be. I think Houston tried to go pace up and high passing rates, and because of injuries and the offensive line didn't allow them to last year, I just think that like that offense is going to just take off, man. So I'm really high on the Texans, which I mean I know that's not a crazy take. Like everybody's pretty high on Stroud and where they've got him. A lot, like pretty much everybody's got him as a top six quarterback. But Mahomes, I just look at it like he's in a tier of like all these kind of guys, and I love all those guys, but it just kind of like you're just kind of picking your flavor. And so like could I make an easy case to put Mahomes considering his history over Stroud? I could. I still do lean Lamar Jackson pretty heavily at QB3. Just they're just it's just the rushing. It's the rushing, and the way that this offense really went pace up last year. I think that's going to happen again this year. Could I poke holes and like, well, the receiving weapons are kind of diminished in Baltimore. Odell left and things like that. But it's like it's freaking Lamar, man. Like there's a certain amount of it. He's just going to do his damn thing regardless of whoever's catching the damn ball.
So with Mahomes, I think that if you look at what he did last year, that was definitely a down year. QB10,
Yep.
probably his worst year. Since he's been in the league. Because before that, he had been a top five or better, and only one other year we still scored 20.7. This is the
Hmm.
first year as a starter he ever scored under 20 fantasy points per game.
Yep.
But if you look at the wide receivers that he had there, obviously, I mean, it tells kind of the story of what happened there. I mean, Rashee Rice didn't come
Hmm.
on until the second half of the season. I mean, it was MVS and Kadarius Toney dropping ball after ball after ball. Sky Moore who can't ever gain separation. And I think now, I mean, their pass catching core is light years better than what it was before. Yeah, and I'm starting to think Rashee Rice isn't going to get suspended this year. I
Oh,
thought
you
this was something.
don't?
Well, it just, I felt like we would have heard something about the case, and it feels pretty quiet, like that there's nothing really happening.
Yeah.
And if they don't push something along over the next 2 months, there's no way they're going to let this like go to court and everything during the season. They will continue this thing out past season. So I think it could end up being like a Kamara thing where they push it out to next
Could
year.
be.
And so if that's the case, that changes the dynamic of a lot of the wide receivers. But even still,
Oh
even if
yeah.
he is suspended, I mean the addition of Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and then when they get Rashee Rice back, like this wide receiver core is way better. And the big narrative for them this offseason, and they've been pretty good about like just being honest about who they are. Like it's not a lot of coach speak, is they are going to bring the deep ball back, and that's
Hope
what they're
so.
big, which was the plan of why they brought in Hollywood, why they brought in Xavier Worthy. So that being said, and Patrick Mahomes isn't a nothing in terms of running the football. He's not
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen, but I mean he still gives you 400 yards rushing, which is
Hmm.
still good to be top 8, top 7, something like that. And so to me, I think Patrick Mahomes bounces back in a big way, and I think he has another 5,000 yard, 40 passing touchdown season here with this
Where do
offense.
you have him in your QB ranks, Kev? Do
I
you
have
have
him
him
at
like
QB
QB?
2. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I was gonna say, do you got him at like QB2, QB3? And I'm not gonna push back on anybody being higher on Mahomes than I am. Like, I think it's just splitting hairs. Like, I mean, you can make the case easy for Mahomes. I think they're if you were to tell me that Rashee Rice didn't get suspended and he has all of his weapons fully healthy the entire year, then yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna bump up Mahomes a little bit. The other thing that I guess not poking holes in Mahomes, but like looking at how that receiving room is built, some of the reasons I also have Mahomes behind like Stroud, we have no questions about Stroud. Stroud, his top three weapons are going to be good to go week one. Everybody's healthy, things like that. And with Mahomes, it's do I believe in Xavier Worthy? Yes. Do I have worries about Rashee Rice because what if he is suspended 6 or 8 games? It's going to affect his passing. I mean, to an extent, his passing numbers because you're taking another guy out of it. The other part about Hollywood is that And maybe this is reflected a little bit too much, maybe not enough in my ranking for him, but I worry about Hollywood's ability to stay healthy throughout the entirety of a season with the litany and just the long injury history going back to even before he was drafted of foot injuries, ankle injuries. And last year he got a lot of volume, but we saw the efficiency decline pretty much. Like it was a good bit. Now maybe that bounces back with better quarterback play, and there's a conversation to be had there. But if you were to tell me Mahomes, like it's week 7, week 8, or even let's go a little bit further. If it's week 5, week 6, and Rashee Rice isn't out there because he's suspended for say 8 games, and Hollywood is on the injury list, and then it's boiled down to it's just Kelsey and Xavier Worthy catching passes on a weekly basis, would I be that surprised? Not really.
Yeah, and then they'll just be back to what they were last year. There's a lot of underneath
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
So.
and that's kind of where I guess the risk that I see with Hollywood and the Rashee Rice situation. That's another reason why I have Mahomes below Stroud, because Stroud, it's like we have questions about Diggs. We don't have any questions about his availability. He's going to be out there. So's Nico and so's Tank. Dalton Schultz is good to go. The offensive line should be healthy, and they played really damn good down the back half of last season.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think it's kind of 2 and 5. I don't think it's that huge of a difference between where we have them. One quarterback that I know you've been a constant drumbeat, and I'm not gonna lie, like anything that you want, I try to catch and I try to listen to.
Mhm.
And like anything like you do fantasy pros, like I'll listen to it like on my way to work. And I've talked about this before. Like there's times where I'm like yelling at
That's when you're driving in the car and you're like, "What?
yeah.
No, 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 no."
And this is one that is weird for me because like I actually really like this player, but
Mhm.
it's Jaden Daniels, and you have him
Oh,
at
where do
QB
you
10.
where do you have him ranked at? Let's
I have him
start
at
that off.
I'm not that far away. I am at
Okay.
QB 14, so like I'm not like significantly like lower on him. But
Okay.
here's my thing. Like his best argument is because like I still have a lot of question marks with the offense, right? Like, and you are admittedly not a big Jahan Dotson guy, right? So if you're not
Nope.
a Jahan Dotson guy, he has no weapons. Like it is Terry McLaurin.
Eh,
I mean, he has Terry McLaurin. Like, listen, you can love Luke McCaffrey, and maybe he'll be your Puka Nakua this year, right? But
I love
I
Luke.
think it's going
Yeah.
to take him time to develop. He is extremely raw. Like I do not see him coming out and being a big thing this year. And my one pushback against Jaden Daniels is why did it take him so long to break out in college? Like it wasn't like he was doing this for year over year.
Yeah.
The man threw a touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk. Like that's how long he was in college, right? And like
Mhm.
so he's not a super young quarterback. He's not 22, right? He's about to
Mhm.
be 25 years old. And so
Mhm.
like he has the 1 year of of big production in a year that the SEC was down. Now, the hard part is the thing that I love about all quarterbacks that I look for is his ability to run the football. No
Mhm.
denying that. But I feel like QB 10 is a little ceiling-ish for him because of the
Ooh.
offense that he's in. Now, I liked Anthony Richardson a lot last year, right?
Mhm.
And then you can make the same case for Anthony Richardson this year as you
Yep.
did with Jaden Daniels, right? Because like we
Mhm.
love Anthony Richardson. I have Anthony Richardson at QB 6. Why do I
Same.
have him at QB 6? Whenever if I have these concerns,
I was fixing to say, why do you have Anthony Richardson at QB 6, but Jane Daniels at
and
QB
I guess I
14?
saw in those 4 games the huge sample size that we have, like the
Yeah.
production that he was able to put up. But
Yep.
I'm just a little bit hesitant. And like, does Jaden Daniels even start the year as the starter?
Oh, he'll start. He'll start. He's gonna be the starter. I don't have any. Do you think Marcus Mariota is starting week 1 over him?
I don't think so, but you never know with these
Okay.
coaches, right? Like
Oh,
I wouldn't think so.
I think Jane Daniels is locked in.
But
He's week 1
regardless, like,
starter.
so what is your because like at QB 10, like what is your stat lineup for him? Like what because I saw like you have like Dak, you have him
Mhm.
ahead of Dak, and
Mhm.
I would take Dak all day over Jaden.
So, I mean, you talk about the weapons, so like even him versus Dak. Who the hell is Dak throwing the ball to besides CeeDee Lamb, dude?
Well, I
Like,
mean, that's a big one. I mean, arguably,
well,
top three, four wide
fair,
receiver in the league.
fair, but you after CeeDee Lamb, who the hell do you feel good
Jake
about, man? It's
Ferguson,
like,
I guess.
you mean Mr. 4-8, like led the all tight ends and red zone targets last
Brandon
year,
Cooks still
and
has something in the tank, doesn't he?
uh, theoretically, I mean, there's still some gas in there. I can't tell you if it's not aged a little bit or if it's been put up over the winter, and maybe you probably need to drain the tank. But I mean, with Jaden Daniels, there's a lot of parts or pieces with it, and I look at the rushing floor and utility. One, it's the same bet in part, some parts that I was making last year on Anthony Richardson, in that his rushing equity alone will make him a top 12 quarterback. I firmly believe that. Like, the rushing Konami code will make him a top 12 quarterback. So it's like, I look at his floor is QB 12. And people could say, well, that's kind of crazy. And it's like, I mean, I don't think it is, in the sense that we already have a sample. Like, what did Kyler do coming out of college? Like, in the first year that he was with Cliff, you're looking at QB 11, then QB 3, QB 4, QB 7. Those are the finishes with Kyler Murray. And as far as just with Cliff Kingsbury, again, QB 11, 3, QB 4.
What did
Like,
he score? What did he score his rookie year? That's one that matters.
QB 11. He was a QB 11 in fantasy points per game. And so I look at, what do we want out of quarterbacks for the top 12? In the rushing, okay, Jay Daniels, check. High-paced offense. We know Washington is going to be paced up. Like, Cliff is going to do that.
Cliff Kingsbury was top 3 or top 5 in pace 3 of the 4 years he was with the Cardinals.
So again, check. So we want rushing out of quarterbacks. We want play volume. We're getting both of those. Every single year we bitch and complain about it, Kev. When is Terry McLaurin going to get an actually good quarterback to throw him the damn ball? That's coming this year, because I freaking, that's the other part about it. It's like, I don't think that people give Jane Daniels enough freaking credit about how good he is as a passer too, man. It's just, it's all over his tape. Anticipatory throws, ball placement. He led the damn nation in deep ball, like everything you look at as far as deep ball passing. So, to your earlier question, why did it take him so long to post this type of season? I mean, there's a lot of parts and pieces. You could talk about system. You could talk about the surrounding weapons. The big thing that when going back to prospect season about Jaden Daniels that stood out to me is he talked about this, and they've kind of, they haven't really talked about this a ton in the headlines since he went to Washington, but I have seen some stories about it. In his final year at his final year at LSU, he went into the room and like started using a lot of the VR training and stuff like that. So really getting into the virtual reality simulator, and they're running him through it at double speed and things like that, of going through progressions, going through all these reads, and it took his game and his processing to another level. And so when people talk about, because the other big knock on Jane Daniels that everybody throws out there is his career collegiate pressure to sack rate. And I'm like, that's not telling the full story about Jane Daniels and his progression as a player. His final year pressure to sack rate was way different than all the other years when he was in college. Now, was it fantastic? No, I mean, you could poke holes in it. But did he take a huge leap in that final season? And did he also take a huge leap in that specific metric, as well as everything passing wise? Yeah, I mean, the guy totally remodeled his game, man. I mean, we're talking about and I'm pulling this up right now. In the first few years of in college, his pressure to sack rate was 24, 25. The second to last year at LSU, 30%. His final year at LSU, that dropped all the way to 20.2%. And some people are like, oh, well, it's because he's older. And it's like, no, it's like, when did we get away from because we always talk about this. Why do we get away from players can continue to get better as they play more football, as they change, whether it's off-season workouts, whether it's their mechanics, whether it's all these different things? Because, Kev, you and I are old enough. I mean, when Josh Allen came out, everybody's like, there's no way in hell he's ever going to learn how to hit the damned broadside of a barn. He's inaccurate as shit. He's terrible. And then he goes and reworks his entire game. And I'm not saying that Jane Daniels is going to take that type of leap that Josh Allen did. All I'm saying is that we can't say that players cannot improve. And we've seen that out of Jane Daniels because, dude, I'm old enough to remember, again, when people said, oh, well, Joe Burrow was a one-year wonder. Like, he had all these players. Like, what is Joe Burrow just a flash in the pan? And, you know, everybody with that kind of take, you know, Joe Burrow's put him in a coffin.
Yeah, I think some of the other argument people have, too, is I mean, obviously him playing with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas.
People did the same shit with CJ Stroud. You remember that last year? Oh,
Yeah, and
maybe
there was the same
maybe
conversation with Joe Burrow that
yeah,
look
maybe
at the guys he
Stroud's
had.
not that good. Maybe it's all of his wide receivers. Maybe Joe Burrow's not that good. Maybe it's all of his wide receivers. When has that conversation really, or that should I say, when has that narrative really bared any fruit for anybody that's gone down those roads?
The only thing the one question I guess I do have is why do you have Caleb Williams below him whenever you have like Caleb Williams pass catchers significantly higher?
Rushing.
Because you have Caleb Williams like his top 3 and almost inside your top 36, right?
Because I mean, Caleb's going to live from the pocket. I don't think that a lot of the rushing utility is going to translate for him. Like, I don't see him getting a lot of rushing scores. Could he do that? Possible. But I look at Caleb Williams, he's probably going to end up as like in that Mahomesian kind of like 300, high 300s for rushing yards. I don't see where you go out of your way to sign someone like DeAndre Swift and then say we're not going to use him at the goal line. Well, shit, if you're not going to use him at the goal line, why didn't you just keep Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson? So, like, I look at Caleb Williams is the rushing utility I don't think translates to the NFL a ton. I think he's probably going to live in somewhere of like that high 2s, somewhere in the 300 rushing yards. I don't see a lot of rushing touchdowns. And so then it really comes down to how much passing volume can we get? And could we get a lot of passing volume? It's possible. Shane Waldron's got it in his bag, in his history to ramp it up, but does that actually happen in his first season? And for all the good things about Caleb Williams, and I think with his pass catchers, I probably need to maybe drop Keenan Allen just a little bit. It's kind of one of those like situations where you kind of play an ADP too. It's like, I don't want to be too far behind or too high on some of these guys. I'm like, we're not really sure how the targets sift out in Chicago. Like, dude, I was actually, it's funny you bring up that passing attack because I was looking back because Shane Waldron in the past few previous seasons has been extremely predictable in his usage and when they face certain coverages. Like over the last 2 to 3 seasons, it's like when they faced a team that ran a lot of single high, it was DK Metcalf week, bank on it. When they faced a team that faced a lot of 2 high, it was going to be Tyler Lockett week. So I was like, okay, if he goes back to this similar kind of system or he goes back to similar usage patterns for some of these wide receivers, who kind of fits the mold and when you're attacking coverages, how does this look? And it's still a cluster when you try to even look at it that way. It's like, okay, well, who was good versus what last year? And I was like, well, shit, like DJ Moore was good versus both coverage types. Keenan Allen was really damn good versus both. And we don't know what Roman's going to do. And I'm like, well, crap. Okay, well, we still don't know. I still can't I've tried to dice this up a million different ways. And I'm like, I still don't know how the targets are going to sit here and freaking shake out in Chicago. And I think it comes down to, for Caleb, I don't believe the rushing volume is going to be as high as maybe some do based off of what he did in college. And I have a few questions about their offensive line because out of everything that Chicago improved in the offseason, well, they brought in skill players. That's good. Their offensive line is still as good or as bad as you want to call it as last year. There's really no change on their offensive line. So, there's just some worries, and I think the lack of the rushing utility versus what I think other people are projecting is why I have him a peg lower.
Yeah. All right. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about quarterbacks. We spent 24 minutes talking. Well, not probably less than that, but still. So let's go ahead and move over to the position that we have the most disagreement on, and so let's go to the running back position, and we have at least 5 that I want to hit on.
All right.
The first one, when I mean anger, I mean anger.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like, because it makes zero sense to me. All right, I'm going to give you the floor.
All right. Okay.
First, and then I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
Okay.
Fucking Henry. Like, you have him at RB7.
That's the guy you hate? Jeez, okay. All right.
RB7.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
So give me your case. I have him at RB18. Okay.
Oh God, you're gonna have to tell me. You're gonna have to make a better case of why you hate Derrick Henry. That's the one I need to hear.
Okay. I can do
You
that.
you need to tell me why the hell you hate Derrick Henry, and then we can have a
I don't
conversation of
hate
why I
Derrick
love him.
Henry. I
Yeah,
hate his
he's a mid
ADP.
RB too. How do you not hate him?
His ADP is ridiculous, right? It is rising. It
It
is
is
now. It is inside. Is getting inside the top 30. That is
okay.
absolutely ridiculous
Okay,
for a 31-year-old running back. And I know, he is an outlier. He's different. He's
but he
built different,
is.
right?
He is.
But he got out snapped over the second half last year by Tajay fucking Spears. Let's throw that out there. He only had a
Well,
64% opportunity share last year. It dropped significantly. Do you think at the age of 31 years old that they are going to give him this massive workload? Yes, I understand Lamar Jackson factor. He's going to be able to be
mm-hmm,
more efficient, but he still
mm-hmm.
scored 12 touchdowns last year. But that still only results in being the RB 16 overall, and expected fantasy points was RB 22. And so even if let's say he's higher than, yes, I think he probably does score double digit touchdowns, right? I think that is definitely in the range of possibilities. Gus Edwards scored 13 touchdowns last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he only was 11 fantasy points per game. Yes, Derrick Henry's better than Gus Edwards, but like unless you're projecting to think that he's going to score 20 touchdowns, because that's what he's going to have to do. Because even his best year, right? I mean, he still wasn't the RB1 because he doesn't catch passes, and I don't think they're going to give
Mm-hmm.
him this massive workload. Last year, he had 16 and a half carries per game. I think he's going to be at 14 to 16 carries per game. And he's going to have to run extremely hot in the touchdown department to be able to pay off that ADP of where you're drafting him. And so if he would have stayed at RB 15, 16, which is where he was going early, I would be totally fine with it. Yep, cool. I'm on board with it. But as he gets higher and higher, and he's now up to RB9, is way too high for the other running backs that are going on. Hell, take Joe Mixon, who is also in a great offense, who's going to be the workhorse, and in that offense, right? Like, and he's going significantly later. But Derrick Henry at RB7 is blasphemous.
I adamantly disagree with that. Derrick Henry, and yes, we're going to talk about it. He's built different. But you're telling me I don't give a shit what his age is when you tell me this, or what I'm about to tell you, Kev. Derrick Henry, even despite his advancing age last year, among 68 freaking qualifying running backs, was still ninth in explosive run rate and 11th in yards after contact per attempt. So I don't really give a shit that he's 31. He still is holding up to all this volume, and I can't do anything about Tennessee being just a bag of dumbasses last year. When you're telling me you're taking Derrick, and this is not me hating Tajay Spears, because I love Tajay Spears. I wish they would have never signed Tony Pollard, but it is what it is. But with Derrick Henry, they took him off the freaking field. Yeah, he's still got a lot of volume. I don't think Baltimore brought him in to say, oh, we're going to kind of rest him. Like, do I think he's going to get 25 carries a freaking week? No, I don't think he's going to get that. Do I think that he's going to get 300 plus touches this season? Oh, you better believe I do, man. And I think the biggest argument against Derrick Henry is worries or concerns about the Baltimore offensive line. I think that's the best argument that I could sit here and make against Derrick Henry. But when we talk about Lamar Jackson, the ability of a rushing quarterback, and Baltimore year after year after year. Now, Lamar has dealt with these shitty offensive lines they put him behind at certain times, and that's affected Lamar. Has that affected Baltimore's ability to run the damn ball? No, it hasn't. So I still think we get an efficient running attack, even with the downgraded offensive line. And Derrick Henry, what are we talking about, man? Like, even if their offensive line is worse than it was last year, which I think we can make projections that that's the case. Derrick Henry did everything he did last year behind a bottom 3 offensive line. Tennessee's offensive line was terrible. It was just turnstiles. Put 5 guys up in front of him that can't block for shit, and Derrick Henry just go make something happen. And Derrick Henry had to. And so when you look at his efficiency metrics, I'm willing to throw the age out the window to an extent because he's still producing as an elite running back on a per touch basis. So we've been saying this for how many years, Kev?
Well,
We're
we have seen
waiting
it.
for
We have seen decline. I mean, he dropped down to 3.9 2 yards per carry. Last year.
Yeah, but some of that is specifically tied to his offensive line, and it's not his ability to break tackles because the tackle breaking metrics that I care about,
he's
he's still damn
he,
good,
well,
man.
yeah, of
He's
course. I
top
mean, he's
12.
what 6'3", 240 pounds. Like that, I don't think that's
Yeah.
ever going away. Like he could be 50 and
Yeah.
he's still going to be out here trucking people, running through motherfuckers' faces. You know, like I don't think that ever goes away for Derrick Henry. It's just I feel like where like and like you're not alone. There's other people because that's why his ADP is skyrocketing and has gotten to a point where he's no longer makes sense to draft because he doesn't catch passes. And we're not talking about the fact that this Ravens defense is not as good as it was last year. They lost a lot of pieces on that defense, and he is game script dependent because if they fall behind, it's not going to be Derrick Henry still in the game, right? Because he is not a pass catching
Well,
running back.
hold up. Let's talk about that for a second. His usage and not being a pass catching running back. Do you think that's specifically straight up just because of Derrick Henry, or that was a usage trend for Tennessee? Can we specifically say that that's going
As
to
a pass
definitively
catcher,
happen in Baltimore?
but
Yeah.
he's never. But Lamar doesn't. But they just don't like he doesn't target running backs out of the backfield. Like
I mean,
that's
that's
just,
fine, but do you think that Baltimore is going to stop running the ball and go pass heavy when they're
but why do
down
you
and
think
stuff
they
like that?
like? I feel like also that they signed him to have him throughout the year and into the playoffs. Like, are you
That's fair, but you got to get there first, and they're
of
not going to
course, but
feed
like I think they,
volume to
I
freak.
think
Pete
they,
Mitchell is not going to be healthy. They're not going to feed volume
I
to
think
what
they're going
Justice
to be
Hill.
rotating some other players. Like, I don't think Derrick Henry is going to get 20 touches a game. I think he is going to be in that 15, 16 touches, and he's going to have to run incredibly hot because I want pass catching running backs. Like I want running backs, especially inside the top 10. If I'm taking a running back there, there's other running backs that are going to have similar upside, but have much better pass catching upside than he does because he has to score touchdowns. If he's not scoring touchdowns, he is not a worth
I
the
mean,
pick.
that's fair, but do you not think he's going to score touchdowns in this offense? Tell
He will
me,
score touchdowns. I
yeah,
think he'll
how
score double
many?
digit touchdowns.
How many touchdowns do you think he gets
I
this
think he'll
year?
score double digit touchdowns. I think anywhere from
So
12 to
I
14 I
mean,
think is fair. But he
it,
scored that many last year and he still was only the RB16.
that's fair, but he also ran really poor as far as like the offensive line and the entire like offense around him cratered. Like it wasn't just the offensive line was bad. That entire offense for Tennessee was dog shit. Was absolute dog shit. And so like Baltimore is not going to field that type of offense. Like Lamar is going to Lamar and Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews being healthy like I look at it and think this, man. I think he's going to get a lot of volume. I don't think his efficiency has fallen off. Like, if you want to poke holes, fine. Maybe he's not top 3 and everything. He's still fucking top 12, man. So, as well as, and I'm pulling this up so I'm not just talking out my ass here. I want to say that Baltimore, their running back room as a whole last year scored 20 freaking touchdowns. But I don't want to sit here and say that without being accurate in saying that. Okay, Gus had 13, Justice Hill had 3, Keaton had 2, so now we're at 18. Melvin Gordon had 1, JK, yeah, they had 20. 20 total freaking rushing touchdowns. 20. As well as being on an offense that when they get near the goal line, they are running the damn ball. They were second in red zone rushing rate last year. So they get inside the 20, they get inside the 5. Maybe it's Derrick Henry time. Like, I don't think he's going to score 11 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. I think Derrick Henry's scoring like 15 this year. And that might sound insane, but
But even if
this
it, but if,
team
if
as a total
15 isn't
scored.
going to be I just don't think that's going to be enough though to carry him to where you need him.
You don't think it's
Like
enough? In the years previous, in 2022, he was the RB4 with scoring 13 touchdowns. The year before that, he put up 24 points per game. And again, he scored 10 touchdowns in 8 games. But you go to the previous few years, 17 touchdowns, 18 touchdowns, 12 touchdowns. He was the RB3, RB4. He gets somewhere in that realm. And those years, he only caught 18 and 19 passes. Like last year, he caught 28 passes last year. So, like, if he scores 15 or 16 touchdowns...
he also ran incredibly high. I think he had a couple of long runs that skewed his receiving numbers. He had 400 receiving yards in 2022. But he also had 349 rush attempts. There's no shot he has anywhere close to 349 rush attempts this year.
Okay.
And he had 1,500 rushing yards, right? And then in
Yep.
2020, the other one that you mentioned...
He went over 20. He went over 2,000 yards, yeah. I know it was... Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? And so that's my problem with him. I think he comes much more closer in line with the stat line that he produced last year, which is still not a bad year. Like I said, like if he was going at RB 14, 15, 16, I'm
Mhm.
cool with it. Like I'm fine with it. But it's where his ADP has gotten out of hand. Like it is his absolute ceiling. And you're drafting. I just don't. I think that's bad process, especially when you're talking about you're getting him in. And I think his ADP is only going to continue to rise. I would not be surprised once we get to redraft season and that ADP becomes, and you get the home league people in there, people that know Derrick Henry. Oh my, and think the same thing as you. Like that always on the Baltimore Ravens and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And I think he starts going like closer to top 5, and that's no shot. I'm taking a 31-year-old running back at that same range. But we talk out of both sides of our mouth because I guarantee you there are other running backs that we have lower. And you're like, well, this guy's 28, 29 years old. I can't be messing with that dude. He's getting too old. But then with Derrick Henry, and I get it, he has obviously just built a little bit different, and he's been an outlier in a
Mhm.
lot of things that he's done. But eventually that comes to a halt. And generally, what happens to running backs when they hit that cliff, it comes very quickly. Look at Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was phenomenal
Well,
until he wasn't.
I'll push
Now,
back about
Dalvin
that.
Cook, there was a history of you started to see it in the efficiency metrics and stuff like that, where he
You started
became
to see it in his final year in Minnesota, and you started to see slight shades of it the year before. So I'll
so.
push back about that because
So
Dalvin
this is
Cook.
my other one. So let's move forward because I actually have a good example of that player
Mhm.
that you have, and it's actually somebody I just mentioned. But I don't mind him at his cost. But you have him higher than I do, and that is Joe Mixon, who you have at RB8. You have the
Yep,
AARP club inside your top 10,
I
and
do.
I have him at RB15. And this is my thing with Joe
You
Mixon.
think he's going to produce like around the Devin Singletary range in
So
that
listen,
offense this year?
I know, but listen, this was his numbers. Like he has been a terrible runner, right? He was 40 and 2 yard per carry,
I
34th in
agreed.
juke
I
rate,
agreed.
41st in breakaway run rate, 35th in yards created per touch last year. Right now his claim is he was still very good as a pass catcher. He was 11% target share. He ranked 11th in total routes run among
Mhm.
all running backs. And he was 16th in yards per route run. Here's the problem: the Texans only targeted running backs 71 times last year, which is the second lowest rate in the league. And I don't think that's
Mhm.
something that's going to change this year when they added Stephon Diggs, Nico, Tank, and Dalton Schultz are still there. So I don't think he sees that pass catching work that he saw last year. And if he's not, then I have a problem with it because he is not good at running the football. He is super inefficient. He's been that way for the last 2 or 3 years, and he's
Mhm.
gotten there on superior pass catching volume. And I don't think that's going to be there. And if it's not, then that is a big problem for Joe Mixon. Now,
So,
the good news is there's nobody else there because we know they hate Dameon
yeah.
Pierce. I wish
Yeah.
I wish they would just send Dameon Pierce somewhere else and
God,
let him go
I
to an
wish
offensive
just trade him to
system
Dallas. Trade him to
that
Dallas,
he could do something
please.
with. But because if you actually look at Dameon Pierce's numbers last year, like efficiency wise, he
They
actually
weren't
wasn't bad.
bad, dude. They
Like
really
his
weren't.
explosiveness, his
Yep.
tackle breaking ability is still there.
Yep.
But regardless of that, they don't like him. He's not a fit for their system. Fine. But I do get that there's really nobody else there like that really stands out right now that can take the job from him. So opportunity
Mhm.
is going to be there. But if he loses that pass catching volume, I have big fears for him because he has not been a good running back.
So the reason I'm in on Mixon this year, and I mean, dude, we can go back to years past. You know, I've never been a big Joe Mixon stan. I've never been into Joe Mixon. Like a lot of years, I've been out here telling people to fade Joe Mixon, and a lot of the reason that what you're talking about, Kev, is because of the tackle breaking stuff. Now, what I will say about if you're looking at the difference in the two teams is that I look at this year and with him being with Houston, I just look at he's getting a massive offensive line upgrade. And when you look at where Houston was last year, I'm pulling this up right now. When you look at where Houston was last year as far as their their run blocking, like once this offensive line got healthy, and I'm sorry, I'm waiting for this was a top 12 run blocking offensive line. Like once Devin Singletary took over, everybody was healthy and stuff. This offensive line was top 12 in run blocking metrics. So I think that he's going to get a huge upgrade as far as the offensive line and the blocking. And I think that's going to help Joe Mixon. And I look at Joe Mixon as basically this year's version of Rashad White. I think he's going to get all the damn work. I think the offense is going to be freaking fantastic. And I think he's going to have scoring opportunities for days. And so I think that you do pose a really good point as far as like with the check down rate and CJ Stroud. The pushback I'll give on that one is that I mean, if you compare the two, Joe Mixon and Devin Singletary as receiving talents, and the other part about that is like you have to have guys like I think Joe Mixon is a better receiver than Devin Singletary is. Now, maybe we can have a really good conversation about like tackle breaking ability. I think at their respective points of their careers, I think Devin Singletary is a better tackle breaker than Joe Mixon, but I don't think he's a better receiver. And so I think that there's a lot of different things there as far as like the ability as a receiver, Joe Mixon versus Devin Singletary. I think Joe Mixon, like you said, is getting all the freaking work. I think the offensive line upgrade is real. And I think the offense is going to be a top 5 scoring offense. I mean, where do you think that Houston's offense lands this year? Like points per game, where does that offense come in for you? Like, do you think they're top 10, top 12, top 3? Like, where does Houston's scoring and red zone touchdown potential come at for you?
Oh, for sure.
Because
Like,
that could be the difference also as well.
no, yeah, I think their offense is going to be really good. Like, I mean, it's going to be one of the best. I mean, as long as CJ Stroud can keep this thing moving and everything else, and but
Mm-hmm.
like the concerning part for me, what would be in the fact that they had so many injuries last year throughout the year. I mean, you had Tank Dell coming in and out of the offense. Nico Collins got nicked up. Noah Brown got nicked up. I mean, and it was really kind of them. And they still didn't involve the running back at all in the passing game. And I just
Mm-hmm.
don't think that is what necessarily what CJ Stroud is looking to do, and he's not looking to dump the ball down. And then you
Yeah,
like I
I
don't
mean
think
it's a
you
good
bring
point.
in Stephon Diggs and now have Tank Dell and Nico Collins and think that okay, well I'm going to hit Joe Mixon for 70 targets this year. I don't think that's the
Mm-hmm.
case. And so if he's not and he loses that, it's going to be a big problem for Joe Mixon because, like I said, and this wasn't just last year for Joe Mixon. This is year over year that he's just not been very good at running the football, and he's been staying afloat by yes, touchdown upside, which he's still going to have, but
Yeah,
his pass catching volume it has been phenomenal, and I don't think that's going to be there this year. I don't think he sees it.
and
I think
that's a
he
good
can still
point.
see like 50 targets, which is fine, but it's not nearly enough than what he's been seeing. And so I think that was where my problem. I actually like him. Like I said, his ADP is actually fine. If his ADP
His
stayed
ADP, actually,
the
I love him
51st
at his
overall
ADP, dude.
RB
I like
15,
I've been drafting so much freaking Joe
no
Mixon
problem
like
with taking him at
in the
cost.
50s. Whew. Yeah, yeah,
But you have him at RB8, and so that's when I was like, okay, like,
yeah.
but so all right. So now we have a couple that were flipped, like which is funny, because like now this is like these are where the guys I have in the ranges of the guys you have, the two
Hmm.
old guys, and then you have them lower. And so for me, the first one I'm gonna bring up is Isaiah Pacheco. I have him at RB8. You
Oh,
have him at
can we
RB13.
just say Homer? Can you just encapsulate your
But
entire
how many running
argument for
backs
him as
last year? Let me
Homer?
ask you this. Let me ask you this. How many running backs last year had over a 70% opportunity share?
Ooh,
How many of those
good
guys are
question.
just grow on trees? Because he did. He had a 72% opportunity share, which was eighth most among all running backs.
Five.
Uh,
I was fixing to say probably like 6 or 7 was gonna be my number.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
believe it.
so so that's one. We already lost unless they bring him back. Who knows? I mean, they just brought back McCole Hardman, so you never fucking know. But Jarek McKinnon is gone, who had a
Well,
35%.
you're not worried about CEH. They brought back CEH.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
I
And so
swear to God, I'm
it's
just kidding.
CH.
That's a joke. It's a joke, Kev.
Yeah, and then they have Amani Bailey and Derek Prince. Those are the running backs. But
Yeah,
Isaiah Pacheco, when you want to bring up per touch efficiency, was really good last year.
he
Uh,
was. Yeah.
his per touch efficiency last year was so he was 11th in breakaway run rate, 18th in yards created per touch, and 20th in yards per route run
Mm-hmm.
last year. He had nearly a 10% target share. Now the one issue with him is a little bit concerned of his injury history. He seems to because he runs like he just is mad at everybody at all the time, and so like it gets him in trouble a little bit. But
It
still,
it
when you have
does.
that,
Yeah.
when you have somebody like McKinnon leaving, who had a 7.3% target share last year and 25 catches and 5 touchdowns. There's no like we talk about. There's nobody else behind him. There really isn't nobody else behind him. Yes, CH is going to check in, but Isaiah Pacheco has a 3 down role. And the biggest thing I heard all last year about him was, oh, McKinnon's going to take all the pass catching work. Pacheco's only going to be a
Mm-hmm.
first, second down guy, and that just wasn't the case. They felt more and more comfortable with
Yep.
him as a pass catcher, and so having him as I think him going inside the top 10 should be a slam dunk. Attached to one of the league's best offenses, he had 50 red zone touches last year. They were comfortable giving him goal line touches, and so I just think Isaiah Pacheco is a very easy pick inside the top 10. and somebody that's still going to be involved in the passing game.
So, all right, but just the same thing that you talked about with Joe Mixon. How much do you think that Patrick Mahomes? Because if you have Patrick Mahomes as QB2, you're making a big bet on Patrick Mahomes. Do you think the kid like? Help me understand this. So Patrick Mahomes is QB2, Isaiah Pacheco is RB8. Do you think Kansas City just leads the NFL in points per game? And I'm going to say this. I think that can happen, but is that what you're projecting? Like this is a top 2 offense or the best offense in football this year? Because it's kind of like if they score a shit ton of touchdowns, are you projecting that they just score a shit ton of touchdowns and they're like lapping the field and like everybody goes up? Because it's like some of these offenses, like you're making bets on, okay, the rushing touchdown equity goes to the running backs or the wide receivers or the quarterback runs it in or how that looks like. And it's like, you said you have Mahomes at QB2 and Pacheco at RB8. Are you just making the bet that Kansas City is legit the best offense in football this year?
Yeah, yeah, they're at least going to
Okay.
be top three. I mean,
Okay.
that, which isn't
Okay.
not a hard thing to see when it comes to the Chiefs. But
Yeah.
I do think
Okay.
Mahomes does tend to target his running backs once we get inside the red zone. I mean, look at Jerick McKinnon the
Mahomes
last
was
2 years.
18th in checkdown rate though last year. Is that enough to get Pacheco? I don't disagree about the workhorse role, but Mahomes only checking the ball down 9.2% of his throws. Is that enough for Pacheco? Kind of like you just talked about with and yes, does CJ Stroud check down less than Mahomes? Yes. But some of the check down rates for Mahomes, could we say that also was the dearth of weapons last year? Does that come back this year when you just talked about they've added Xavier Worthy, they added Hollywood Brown, and if Rashee Rice doesn't get suspended, is Pacheco going to get enough passing volume?
I think there's enough there. Yeah, I'm not projecting that Pacheco is going to see like 80 targets or something like that. Like
Okay.
I think he'll be in that 50, 60 at the most. I think that's kind of where
Okay.
he'll live.
So do you think he
And
just runs like super freaking hot with touchdowns?
well, I mean, it's very. Yes, I think the touchdowns can definitely go up. I mean, last year he only had 44 catches, so it wasn't
Okay.
like he exploded last year. Now that was only in 14 games as well, um, but I definitely think he's going to be more involved at in terms of that. And yes, I think double digit touchdowns is well within the range of possibility for him.
And yes, Hoosier in the chat. Yeah, the Chiefs offensive line is based to my knowledge, and Kev, you could tell me if I'm wrong here. I want to say they're bringing everybody back, right? Outside of what, Orlando Brown or
Orlando Brown left 2 years ago.
yeah, okay. So they're bringing everybody back, aren't they?
No, well, basically, so there are a couple
Yeah.
question marks.
I'm
So
pulling up their
Joe
offensive line
Tooney
right now. He'll be
is
back, yeah.
dealing what?
I said he'll be back.
Yeah, but well,
He's not
hopefully,
fully healthy though, right?
right. He suffered that injury late last year. I think it was like a rotator cuff. I can't remember. It was something like that. Late last year. But the big thing they lost was, well, I guess if you want to call it that, was Donovan Smith, their left tackle.
But
He is
yeah,
gone,
but Donovan
which they
Smith
still
was hot
could bring him
garbage
back.
last year. He was bad last year too.
Yeah, but so they have Wanya Morris, who they drafted last year in the 3rd round. He actually filled in last year when Donovan Smith was out, and actually did really good. And then they also drafted Kingsley in the 2nd round this year. They used their 2nd round pick on him, who's
Creed's
also a left tackle.
back. Trey Smith is back.
Yes,
Jawan
yes,
Taylor's gonna be back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody else is
Well,
good.
and then they drafted Kingsley Sumatia. So I mean, they're kind of covered for tackles too. So I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's mostly as long as Tooney comes back healthy. I mean, it's pretty much outside of replacing one of the tackle spots. I mean, I mean, again, yeah, Wayne Morris played last year, so it's pretty much damn near the same offensive line. So
yeah. I think Joe Tony's the biggest question mark, but still, other than that,
agreed.
yes,
Agreed.
Creed and Humphrey are back, which they're the 2 biggest ones. And then honestly, it'd be awesome if Jawan Taylor wasn't the highest penalized left right tackle in the
He's
league
so
like he was last year.
overrated. He's so overrated. He's so
But
overrated. I was hoping Kansas City, like I love Worthy. I was hoping they went tackle with that 1st round pick because they really needed to, man.
well, the funny thing is a lot of people had them mocked to take Kingsley there in the 1st round, and they fell to him in the
Hmm.
2nd round. So
I
Um,
forget who I kept mocking them a tackle. I forget who I kept mocking them though, but I kept mocking them a tackle too in the first round with all my mocks.
Yeah. So, all right. So I feel like we covered that. So this is gonna bring up the next guy that I'm higher on than you, and that's actually you've already mentioned him, and it's Rashad White. I have an RB9, you have an RB14. I don't understand. This year's Rashad White is Rashad White. Like it's still Rashad White because nothing has changed for him, and he is exactly that. Right? He is
Except he's
a
still bad at
terrible
breaking
runner.
tackles.
He is
He's
so bad. The fact that
terrible
he
at
had
running. Terrible at running the
272
football.
carries, 272 carries last year, and he still didn't have over 1,000 rushing yards is mind blowing.
And that
Right?
offensive line is horrible, dude.
Well, it should be
Their
a little bit
offensive line
better.
in
They drafted
Tampa's.
Graham Barton this year in the first
Ugh,
round, but
I mean, we're hoping. Hey,
right. But where the pushback is he's still going to be massively involved in the passing game. 13% target share, 70 targets last year. He was third in route participation. He was still 23rd in yards created per touch, but he was fifth in yards per reception, 13th in yards per route run. You have Baker Mayfield who's still there, who we know targets running backs at a really high rate, and so the pass catching work is still 100% going to be there. But I'm not worried about Bucky Irving because Bucky Irving's terrible. Bucky Irving is a redundant asset to Rashad White, right? And so when I look at that, I look at this situation, and it's the same situation. He's going to be the man. I don't think Rashad White is like a great running back. He is a very good pass catching running
yeah,
back for sure, but he's not a good running back. But
no.
if they would have drafted somebody different, they would have drafted Trey Benson. They would have drafted, even a Jalen Wright or something like that, or somebody that could push him on the early down work. I would have concerns with Rashad White, but they didn't. They drafted Bucky Irving, and I'm not worried about that. Other than that, they have Sean Tucker. So it's just not something that I see that happening. And so because he's phenomenal as a pass catcher. Like he's still, and that's what his calling card coming out of college was his ability to catch the football. And they just draft somebody that's the only thing he does. And I don't even think he's as good as Rashad White was at catching the football. So
Mhm.
I don't see it going away. The pass catching volume is still going to be there. He's still going to be the workhorse running back in this offense. And so that's why to me, I just think he's kind of an easy I think his
Where
ceiling
do
is
you have
still
him
probably
ranked at?
I
Where do
have
you
an
have him ranked at?
RB9.
Okay, so you're expecting that he basically repeats last year because he
And
was
that's
RB10,
exactly what I think. I
right?
do not think he has top 5 upside or anything like that. Like, I don't
Okay.
think that's in the range of his outcomes. I just think that he
I
is
mean,
a
I don't have
really
it
safe bet.
buried, Kev. Shit, I got him in RB14.
Right,
I mean,
but
we're
we gotta
kind of
talk about
splitting hairs here a little bit, right?
no, this was not as big. The egregious one was Derrick Henry, right? That was the egregious one. But these are more like, okay, we're a little bit different. I have him as an RB1, you have him
Yeah.
as an RB2.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my argument. But and then also there's another one that
Mhm.
I don't know if you have the same take, and I hope you don't have a similar take as you did last year. But I think James Cook is being disrespected this year to a level
Okay.
that it doesn't make any sense to me because
I
this
liked James Cook last year. What are you talking about? I
but
love
the
James
the
Cook
the
last year.
argument against James Cook this year is the exact argument we heard against Travis Etienne last year. It's
Yeah.
who they drafted? They got Ray Davis. Ray Davis is
Oh,
going to be a big
I don't give
problem.
a shit about Ray Davis.
But
I
everyone's using the same
do
argument with
not
Tank Bigsby.
care. I don't care. I don't care that they drafted Ray Davis is not like, dude, people are a little bit over their skis about some Ray Davis, man. I'm like, talk about some guys that are getting a little bit too much love because the running back class. People are like, oh, this running back class is so bad. Like Ray
That's my
Davis, I
point.
feel like I'm like,
Everyone thought this running back class was awful, and then all of a sudden Ray Davis gets drafted. And for most people, Ray Davis was like their RB8, RB9, RB10 in the
I think I had him
class.
lower than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then now all of a sudden he gets drafted to the Bills, and everyone's like, "Oh, James
Yeah.
Cook better watch out." And I get it. He does the one knock against James Cook is he does it the goal line situation. He only had 4 goal line carries. Latavius Murray's
Mhm.
dusty ass had 11, and then you have
Which is
Josh
sacrilege.
Allen
He
who had
should have
14.
never had all that shit. Latavius Murray is like a freaking fullback these days.
Right,
Ridiculous.
but other than that, James Cook was phenomenal, and he was very much involved as a pass catcher. 445 receiving yards, 8th most among all running backs
Mhm.
last year. Yes, he only scored 6 touchdowns, but 10% target share. Now in an
Mhm.
offense that has much less uncertainty when it comes to the pass catchers, because I love Khalil Shakir, which I have to ask you about when we get to wide receivers, because there's something I don't know if it's a mistake or whatever, but I think I like Khalil Shakir a lot. Curtis Samuel is Curtis Samuel. Keon Coleman, there's a ton of red flags there if he's going to
Yeah.
work out.
I'm not a
But
Keon
there's
Coleman
still a
person.
really strong path for James Cook to really be heavily involved in the passing game again. And yes, he may not have the high touchdown rate, but you know what? You know who there was a running back that we heard for years that couldn't score touchdowns, and you couldn't draft him and stuff like that or to stay away because he was never going to be able to score touchdowns. And then all of a sudden he goes out and scores 20, and that's Austin Eckler. And so yes, I get it that there's some concern with his touchdown profile, the goal line work. But if he's heavily involved as a pass catcher, I really like James Cook, and
Yeah.
all I keep hearing about is Ray Davis, and I'm like, this all
Oh,
people
I
were
don't care
saying
about Ray
last year about
Davis.
Travis Etienne was Tank Bigsby. Better watch out. Tank Bigsby's going to take the job from him, and then it never even came close to happening. And I
Yeah.
feel similar to Ray Davis, and so
Where do you have Cook ranked?
I have an RB11.
Okay. That's a really good. Screw it. I'm gonna move Cook up a little bit. I have Cook at RB16. I am gonna put him up a little bit to like RB14. I So with Cook, I'm with everything that you said. I'm not worried about Ray Davis. I guess my worries with Cook is I got some worries just overall with this Buffalo offense, man. Like I have some worries about like what is this Buffalo offense going to look like? How is it going to run? How often? Like how efficient are they going to be? Because all I see for their passing attack is Josh Allen having to do Josh Allen things, a shit ton of Dalton Kincaid targets, and then who the fuck knows what else happens in that passing attack? Like and
You think they're going to be? I think they're going to try to do something similar to what the Chiefs did last year, and it's
probably
just going to
yeah, oh
be
yeah, they're going
death by a
committee.
thousand paper
Full
cuts underneath
Full committee.
everything.
Full committee. I think Dalton Kincaid is their wide receiver one this year. Like I think he in lockstep. Like I think he's going to lead the team in targets. Like
Okay,
not
so
even close.
since we're talking about it, since I'm going to have to wait to wide
Yeah,
receiver. Why do you have Khalil Shakir at wide receiver 80? Do you just hate Khalil Shakir?
probably just an oversight. I probably need to
That's what
move him up.
I was like.
Yeah,
How does he
no,
have an
no.
80?
Being real, be real. Like I've got him at right now. What the shit is he actually?
Yeah,
Oh
an
yeah,
80.
I got him at wide receiver 85. Yep. No,
Which
that's a good. It's a
I
good
have
call
some
out.
players that I
Good
need to
call out.
tighten up. So I was like, maybe he just needs to tighten them
No,
up.
good call out. Good call out.
But
I'm moving him up to wide receiver. Put him at wide receiver 60. Yeah.
so I have him at wide receiver 37, 38.
Ooh,
Yeah,
shit! You're making a big bet on him.
yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think he's the best wide receiver they have.
I don't disagree with that. I really don't disagree with that. I'm not a Keon Coleman fan. We know who the hell Curtis Samuel is. Our divide on that probably stems from I think it's all Dalton Kincaid, and then I think after Dalton Kincaid, it's who's getting open, and nobody's going to demand a huge target share. So that's probably that's our divide right there, probably on Shakir. But go ahead, pro Shakir case.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at him last year, and yes, it's a little bit of a small sample, but still, we
Yeah,
really saw,
we deal in
especially over the
small
last
samples
half of the
every year,
season.
man. Yeah.
So obviously, like we said, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis is gone. That is 41% of the total team targets are now out the window from
Mhm.
this year. And like I said, Keon Coleman, I think he can work, but at the same time, there's
I
still
think
a
he's
ton
going to
of red
fill a
flags.
role. I think he's going to fill a role for them. I think he's
Yes,
nothing more than a role player.
Curtis Samuel, I think, is going to be a really strong number 3
Yep.
wide receiver.
Yep.
But if you look at him, so last year he was 33rd in yards per out run. Shakir was 14th in yards per reception, 19th in target separation, and second in fantasy points per target. I think there's a lot to like here. He was also fourth in yards after yards after catch per reception. So I think they're going to use him a lot like we saw Rashee Rice, right? Get the ball in his hands,
Okay.
quick hitting targets, and I think that is what they're going to use Shakir for. And so if that's the way their offense is going to go this year, I just think Shakir is going to be the biggest benefactor. We saw it late last year, especially with Gabe Davis hurt and all this stuff. He really was kind of the big guy, and all of a sudden start looking like this team's wide receiver one. And I just think he's the safest bet. But everybody else seems to be higher on Keon Coleman. And I'm just not there on Keon Coleman. Like I'm not going to say I think Keon Coleman's going to be a bust. Like I'm not going to
Mhm.
lie. Like early season college football year. Like I watched a couple of the Florida State games, and he
Mhm.
really popped, and I'm like, oh man, this Keon Coleman dude could be a stud.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, but he's never done anything in college. Like he never had a big year. He was never a big
Dude, Johnny
producer.
Wilson on a per route basis has wiped the floor with Keon
Yeah,
Coleman over multiple years. And Johnny Wilson got absolutely just disrespected by the NFL going as late as he did. I thought Johnny Wilson should have been drafted ahead of Keon Coleman. That's a hot take, after the NFL draft and the cards are turned over, but I still believe that Johnny Wilson is a better player than Keon Coleman. So
yeah, and so that worries me as well with him.
yeah.
So I just think there's a real path for Khalil Shakir to be the number one target
Yeah,
here,
I could see
and
that.
I really wouldn't shock if he's the number one target earner by the end of the year. I think he's a safe bet. I don't
Oh,
again.
over Kincaid? You think
Yes.
he? Oh shit. Okay, you're higher on. I get it, and really good data points. So like I can't really push back so much. I just think Dalton Kincaid is going to take another step. I think like looking at Kincaid, I think Kincaid is. You know how we always talk about making strong second year bets on wide receivers? Like I look at Kincaid as he's a wide receiver, dude. Like I just look at like that's what he's going to do. That's what he's been. I think he's going to take another step. I think he's going to lead them in targets, and I think everybody else is just fighting for scraps behind him. I do have Keon Coleman ranked ahead of Shakir. The only reason I have that is because, like I talked about with the red zone role, I think he's going to play a role. I think that Keon Coleman is not a guy that I think is going to be a high end target share earner, but I think there's a real legit possibility he catches like 6 or 7 touchdowns this year.
And I don't. I think I have Dalton Kincaid as a top five. I have him inside my top five. So like I don't dislike
I got
Dalton.
Kincaid as my tight end 3. He's behind only McBride and Laporta. I have him even above
Are
Travis
you
Kelce.
worried at
So
all about Dawson Knox? I know it's easy thing is to say
I'm
no,
not. I'm
but
not.
once he came back last year, like his snap share dropped. Like it went back
Well,
down to
Kincaid
being
was also hurt too. He was dealing with injury there too. So
yeah.
I think that also needs to get brought up too. Kincaid was not fully healthy.
Yeah. So again, this isn't a I'm knocking Kincaid. Like I do really
No,
like
no, I
Kincaid,
get that. I get
but it's
that.
just
Yeah.
I just feel like Khalil Shakir. I think it has the clearest path in my mind to being their wide receiver one. And
I wouldn't be
so
surprised. I mean, after this conversation, I can tell you I'm going to be drafting more Khalil Shakir in best ball. I'm fully going to be doing that because, yeah, I need to go back and look at probably get back into the weeds with Shakir's numbers. I'm probably too low on him just based off of everything you say to the Kev. So, agreed. Like, I think you won me over with Shakir. I'm going to be bumping him up with ranks.
yeah, so I didn't have him on the show sheet, but I just saw that and I was like, ah,
No, no. I mean, like, dude, I love the call out because, yeah, dude, it's like whenever we start ranking all these guys, like sometimes, like when you're updating guys and you're just like, there's stragglers and shit like that, you're just like, oh, wait, holy shit. Like, why is this guy this low? Or, you know what I mean? Or you get to updating ranks and you're looking at like, I'm updating this guy and the top 40, top 50 guys. And once you get past that, you're kind of like, you know what I mean? There's sometimes where you get to guys and you're like, shit, I should have moved him up, or maybe I didn't hit save or something, you know?
yeah. So and I have this up here, Walito. We haven't forgot about you. Where is Kamara ranked? I know you're still a Saints stan. We actually both have him ranked at the exact same spot, and that is RB19. I
Yep.
know, Walito, you're not going to like that, but yeah.
I just, dude, Kamara is so damn like he is a hard player because if you want to talk about from a volume perspective, he should be like a top 12 to 15 RB. But like how we talked about Mixon, Kamara has been objectively putrid at breaking tackles over the last 2 seasons. Like he's just not been good. And it's like from a volume perspective and role perspective, Kamara should be an RB1, but I'm below ADP on him because of those reasons. And I think there's a real possibility that Kamara doesn't play that every single down, getting all the damn work. I think that there's a real possibility that because of his declining effectiveness, specifically on early downs, not the passing game, Kamara is still a stone cold baller. But on the early downs, his numbers have been declining over the last few seasons, man. And like I don't want to just like talk on my ass here, but like I want to say off the top of my head, his yards after contact per attempt for Alvin Kamara has dropped in each of the last 4 seasons. I'm confirming that right now, but like yeah, he has gone actually the last 5 seasons. So since 2019, his yards after contact per attempt has gone from 3.1, 2.9, 2.8, 2.7, and last year was 2.5. So like he is on a steady downward like slope. I don't think that changes now that he's even older. And if Kendre Miller can be healthy, that's why I've got Kamara as an RB2. When it's like if you're doing projections, Kamara's probably going to project as an RB1 for most people because of the volume. But it's like I want to be below ADP on him because I see a lot of red flags. And if Kendre Miller can stay healthy, I think he's going to take a bite out of that workload.
Yeah, I really like Kendrick Miller. He's one of my favorite kind of late round
Yeah,
targets at
I've
running
been
back.
drafting a shit ton of him in best ball lately.
Him, I think Ty Chandler, I think is another one that's not getting enough love. But yeah, and we don't have, you know what? Actually, yeah, I got. We have one more we got to ask. Why do you hate Javante Williams?
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. You know damn well I loved him as a prospect, and I love Javante over multiple years, okay? What did you see out of Javante? And I know where you're gonna go with the knee is gonna look better this year, and he's gonna bounce back, and that's all gonna be like in the rear view. I worry about that a little bit more than you do, Kev. I do. A lot of this comes down to I just worry, like, is he ever going to get back and be the special tackle breaker that we saw as a prospect? And I just don't know if that happens, man. Like, his numbers last year were rough. And can we say that's because of what happened with the knee injury and the first year off of it? You can make a case with that. And could I be wrong with that? I absolutely could be. But I'm worried about that. And as well as, and I don't want to get too narrative-y, but like when you've heard about Sean Payton talk about this backfield, talk about how this offense is going to be composed this year, he hasn't been heaping praise on Javante Williams and saying, "Oh, he looks great, he looks good." Like I've seen a few like little positive kind of comments come out recently, but nothing where like I feel great about Javante. This is his backfield. He's going to be the guy this year. Blah blah blah. Like I just worry I don't know if we see Javante Williams come back and be the guy we loved as a prospect. We loved is it like in his first few years in the NFL. That's my worries with it, man. And yes, is part of this that I just freaking love Jaleel McLaughlin? Yes, I'm not gonna back off of that. I freaking love that kid. I think he is gonna catch a shit ton of passes. I think he is awesome by every single damn metric you look at. He is freaking awesome.
You're
Like,
that you're that meme. You know the meme with the guy who's looking back at the girl that's walking by, and that's Javante, and then that's McLaughlin walking by. He's staring. Like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. I need to create that. I want to create that
I
and
can't,
put that out on
I
Twitter.
can't, I can't say you're wrong. That's a really good call. Only, dude, how many? Because dude, come on. When we were both talking about Javante, like people, we could go find old clips. It was you and me like fighting for who loved Javante more, dude. So it's like, it's not that I hate Javante Williams. I really worry. Are we ever gonna see that same Javante Williams we saw in the first few years, man? And it's like, I know that Sean Payton is going to throw to the damn running backs. It's going to happen. It's happened every damn year as a head coach. It's going to freaking happen in 2024. I just really think that Jaleel McLaughlin is going to really eat into his work, man. Like, because by every stretch, you talk about all the efficiency metrics, Kev. Like, by every stretch of the imagination, Jaleel McLaughlin like put up shit crazy numbers last year. Like 14th in explosive run rate, 5th in missed tackles forced per attempt. He was 4th in yards after contact per attempt. He was 4th in yards per route run. Like every legitimate metric, when he got the damn ball in his hands, he was top 15 in fucking everything. So like, I just worry we ever gonna see the same dude, man. And this is also like I'm making the bet on a really talented as hell young player as well that's gonna play passing down. So
So
I don't know.
I
I
don't.
could
I
be
mean, I
wrong.
don't dislike, and I think it's very easy to bet on either one of them because they're so cheap.
Yeah.
Even Javante is going on like the 90s to 100s in terms of ADP.
Yeah.
So like he's not expensive at all to take shots on.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like I feel like we pick and choose sometimes when we want to use a narrative when we don't. Like normally it's like, hey guys, we should avoid these running backs because it's first year back from ACL. We got to avoid these
Mm-hmm.
guys. It's year
Mm-hmm.
two that all the data shows that year two is when they return to being that guy again. And it's like with this year, it's like with Javante, it's like fuck him, he's done, he's toast. You see how terrible he looked last year? Like, oh yeah, like he
So
wasn't coming off a major fucking knee injury, like, okay, but he
Yeah.
was still ninth in explosive run rate. I'll at least give him that. That's like his one thing that he did have last year. But if you go back to what his rookie year was, like that's what everybody loved about him. He was seventh in yards created per touch. He was
Yep.
17th in breakaway run rate. He was sixth
Yeah.
in evaded tackles, eighth in juke rate. Like all that was there, right? And so, but of course, he suffers this massive knee injury, and of course he's going to look bad last year. So I'm just saying, at cost, I am still going to be buying Javante, and if he burns me, it doesn't matter. I just burnt a 10-pound
So
pick.
what I worry about, and I only worry about this like and smarter people than I with injuries and things of that nature. Like I think one of the best like cases and when people were talking about this last year with Brees, when Brees is an upper top shelf, ridiculous, stupid athlete. Okay. So it's like if it those types of guys that are the top shelf, ridiculous, awesome athletes, like when they rehab from these injuries, if you take 5%, 10% of that explosion away, they're still going to test and be really freaking awesome. My other worry is like we both love Javante. The only thing that like when you talk
Not,
about
not as
Javante as
much apparently.
well, when he came out, was he the same type of athlete? Like we're looking at 36th percentile 10-yard split, 47th percentile 20-yard split. Like the explosion metrics were okay, but not great. So it's like, say you lop off 10-15% of that. Like maybe he just never gets that back. Okay. And maybe that's being generous, like saying, because obviously last year, based off of a lot of the metrics, there was a lot more of the juice that was missing than just 10 or 15%. So it's like, what if you lop 10-15% off of his athleticism, his short area agility? Can he get back to being the same guy if he wasn't the same level of athlete? And that's another concern with it.
Which I think is fair. And how come P Ryan is always out? Because I wouldn't
Because
be
P.
shocked to
Ryan
get
might
him
not
back.
even be on the damn team in week
They,
one.
they can
And
save $3 million. Team that needs to save as much
yeah,
money as they can, and he's $3 million.
P. Ryan's dust.
Yeah.
Like Jaleel was playing over him last year. Like they signed him for a low end contract. I'm still surprised that P. Ryan is on the roster right now. I will say that, but I will be even more surprised if P. Ryan is on the roster come week one.
Yeah, because I can't imagine they're going to carry 4 running backs, because that means
No,
when you have
Blake
Audric
Watson's going to
Estimate.
take his roster spot. That'll happen.
Well, I
I think.
mean, and you have Audric Estimate too.
Yeah. Again, I think they probably keep 4 running backs. They're not keeping 5. Like they're definitely not keeping 5. Shit, they might not even keep 4. They might drop Blake Watson like the practice squad and cut P. Ryan. Who knows?
Yeah. So I think they're going to keep 3 running backs. Like I would be
Yeah.
surprised if they kept 4.
I think it'll be Javante. I think it'll be Jaleel, and then I think you're looking at it's probably Estime as the other guy because he plays a role that neither one of the other guys play. Like, well, I mean, he plays the role. He'd be the direct backup to Javante. So that's another part about Jaleel. It's like he's gonna play a role like Javante could still get a shit ton of targets. Like that's fine. Like he got 58 last year. That's totally fine. Like I'm not trying to steal away from his target volume when projecting being really high on Jaleel McLaughlin. So
Yeah. And then so me and Debro are both big Zamir White guys.
oh yeah,
We talked about it before.
Samir's gonna crush, dude.
I have 100% of him in best ball right now.
I
Absolutely love
I'm
the
I'm
ADP.
bumping up my rookie numbers. I've got like 12 or I think what was it 12 or 14%. Kev, I told you like I
Yeah,
love
his
Zamir.
ADP is ridiculous to me.
It's
It's
stupid.
creeped up a little bit, but it's still like RB 23, 88th overall for a player who, I mean, Antonio Pierce is very old school, and he's very much like Cuckoo Keeper. Like I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna run the rock. That's how you win football games. And
Zamir's ADP is in the 80s, and just to put respect, like Walito, I've got Zamir White at 49th overall in my ranks. I love Zamir.
to be fair, I had him inside my top 12, and I'm like, it's probably a little hot. Like,
I mean, he was the RB12 when he was the starter last year.
yeah,
Ain't
it's
that
just
damn hot?
I'm just still
It is,
I'm
but
somewhat
you know what I
concerned in
mean.
passing game work, and then how explosive the offense is going to be.
See,
But
everybody talks about that, and I'm like, he played a shit ton. Like he was playing almost 70% of the snaps. So like, are we worried about Amir Abdullah? I'm not.
I think the big argument people have is Dylan Lobby, which I
Dylan
thought.
Lobby's not even going to play over Abdullah, so people need to get that through their heads too. Like, Lobby's not even going to play snaps this year,
Well,
like
some
over
people like, and
Abdullah.
I just find it so funny because I'm like, Dylan Lobby's like 28 years old, man. Like, he played at New Hampshire,
I
like,
mean,
or
he's got
whatever.
my hairline, kind of. So
So, like, I don't know, but like, I love Zamir White, and people are like, oh,
same.
he's gonna be this year's Alexander Madison. I'm like, no, because Alexander Madison was
No.
terrible. Like, and we saw it in the numbers. Like, he had fallen off. He was not the same guy that he was a couple years prior, and so
Yep.
like that's why he got cut. Like, I'm not worried
Yep.
about which I'm not even worried about Alexander Madison. That is there, and
Nope.
so I don't know. I really like Zamir. I think he's
I
a
love
pretty safe
Zamir.
bet.
I'm with you. I think the Zamir White being Alexander Madison is a lazy, lazy, lazy damn narrative. And just to give Zamir a little more love here, Kev. Last year when he was the team starter, so what was that? Weeks 15 through 18 amongst 41 qualifying running backs, he was 13th in explosive run rate, 6th in yards at a contact per attempt. Zamir White is not Alexander Madison. I'm sorry, but anybody saying that is full of shit.
Yeah, I agree. And then Zach Moss, I go back and forth with because like Zach Moss with Anthony Richardson was awesome. Zach Moss not with Anthony Richardson was back to being
Was
Zach Moss,
yeah, he
and
was
and so like
yeah.
but if his ADP doesn't get high enough, like hey, man, I don't think he's a bad person to invest in, take some shots on, but he's not somebody that I'm going to be like going out of my way. Like I don't think he is the guy that we saw in the first part of the season.
No.
But same time, we do see how much Joe Burrow checks down to running backs. So if you can get the RB1 right, I think it does make sense. But Chase Brown is definitely big enough to be a workhouse back. Like he's
Oh
not
yeah, Chase
like
was a workhorse in college, man.
yeah, and I think people look at Chase Brown sometimes and think that he's like this little small running back and like a scat back, and
No,
he's
he's
not. I
not.
think he's 5'10", 210 pounds. So like he could certainly take over this backfield. Like so like Chase Brown is a guy that if I'm going to be investing in a Bengals running back, I think it's probably be him.
Do you know my takeaway for that offense? I don't really give a crap about either one of their running backs. I think Cincinnati just goes pass heavy. I think they go pass crazy. Like my move with the Cincinnati offense is I just want all their passing weapons. Like I think Joe Burrow is going to just air it out this year. So it's like I don't really give a shit about Zach Moss. People can draft him at ADP. It's fine. People can draft Chase Brown. I don't really give a shit about that either. I'm just like I think Joe Burrow is going to throw the damn ball like crazy. And so I'm drafting a ton of Jamar Chase. I'll take T. Higgins. He's fine, but I'm drafting a shit ton of Jermaine Burton, man. Like I think the way to attack Cincinnati this year is invest in the freaking passing attack. You can miss me pretty much with both those running backs. It's fine.
Yeah, and then Gus Edwards, I don't really care about Gus Edwards
No,
either.
I don't
Like
care
if I'm
either.
going to take a shot on one of these guys,
Kamani Vidal, baby.
yeah, Kamani
It's
Vidal.
Kamani. It's Kamani.
Yeah.
It's
And-
easy, Kamani. J.K.
and-
Dobbins probably isn't on that team in week 1.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. And like this offense is going to be really wild to see this year because like it's so tough because like I love Justin Herbert the player, but I
Yeah,
feel bad
same.
for Justin Herbert because like I'm like, can this man just have like something nice? Because like I just feel like he's never like he's had Keenan Allen, all of his weapons get hurt all the time.
Yeah.
But like I think Justin Herbert is legitimately a top like it's just quarterback talent, a top 6-7 quarterback in the league. It maybe even
Yeah.
higher. Like he is a phenomenal talent. But like I'm like this is what he's left with. Like and I really like Lad McConkey like as an option for him. But like if that past that, it's Joshua fucking Palmer, and Hayden Hurst,
Hayden Hurst.
and
QJ.
Quentin Johnson. If I don't know whatever happens with him, like it's a sad deal. And like
I
here's the thing.
think the one thing that people aren't talking about, and I know we kind of side tangent in here, but I think the one thing that people aren't talking about enough is, hear me out. I'm not saying that Justin Herbert is going to morph into this like Lamar Jackson-y, Colin Kaepernick, whatever, like rushing quarterback. He's athletic as shit though, dude. I wonder, do we get like a 500 rushing yard season out of Justin Herbert in this offense? That's kind of what's been eating at my brain. I'm like, as low as everybody is on Justin Herbert, I really wonder if he's going to run some more this year in the way that this offense is going to be built. Because he's athletic enough to do it, dude. He can do it. We haven't seen him do it, man. Like he's been like every single year it's check down, check down, check down. Oh, everybody else in the offense freaking like is hurt. Okay, check down, check. Oh, Austin Eckler's my wide receiver 1 this week. Check down, check down, check down. Like Joe Lombardi is running the offense. Check down, check down, check down. Like I think that Justin Herbert's going to run more than people give him credit for. Like I think like I won't be surprised, and I'm not projecting him this way, but I won't be surprised if he ends up somewhere in the neighborhood of like around 500 rushing yards this year.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would have drafted like Malik Neighbors, but
No, God, yeah, me too. But Harbaugh wants to build through the trenches, and he believes in building through the trenches, running the ball and playing defense, and the rest of it he's going to figure it out.
he's another cocoon keeper.
I mean, he's got his system and the things he believes in, and that's what he's going to do. It's not like it's more like how they always say like great coaches take, adjust the offense and adjust to like the players that they have, and then other guys are like, okay, square peg round hole. I'm just going to do my thing.
Yeah, but like it's tough knowing that you're in the AFC West and like the team that you're gonna have to beat. Like you're not ever beating the
You're
Chiefs.
not going to hold a team and say, "Hey, we're going to beat a scrap fest like we're going to beat the Chiefs 20-16." You know what I mean? Like, nah, dude. You,
Yeah,
you can't play Cape away. You're going to have to go out there and just you're going to have to outfire them, man. You're going to have to outfire them.
yeah.
It is what it is.
So anyway, I do have a couple well, not really a couple, more of just one or two that we could talk about here. One, Jalen Waddle. You have a wide receiver 21. I have a wide receiver 13.
Mhm.
So with Jalen Waddle, like I know Jalen Waddle was a little bit frustrating last year, but he was still had a 23% target share. He was 8th in yards per route run, 15th in yards per team pass attempt. He was also 6th in first down per route run. He was also 4th in target per route run rate last year. Um, so I think there's still a really high target or really high path here for him. 72 catches, 1,000 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. Dealt with a lot of injuries last year. Concussion in week 2. He had also had a high ankle sprain that he suffered late in the season. 14.2 fantasy points per game. I just think and there's really not much else there. I mean, obviously it's Tam and
Mhm.
Tyreek still. They didn't really do a lot. Like a lot of people thought they were going to do something more. I know they brought in Odell Beckham. I don't give a shit about Odell Beckham to be honest. And so like I think Odell Beckham is a very part time player. But as long as he can stay healthy this year, and the way this offense is going to function, and let me be clear about this, their defense is going to be fucking terrible. Like they're going to have to
Yeah.
fucking score points, and they're going to
Yeah.
have to throw the ball. And so, like I just I get it. Jalen Waddle was a little bit of a letdown last year, but I still think
You have him at 13, you
yeah,
said? So I not trying to diffuse our arguments, but just absolute transparency. So I started this offseason very low on Waddle, and a lot of this came down to his usage last year. Like the dude is stupid talented, and his efficiency metrics, all that stuff are still freaking awesome. And I started off the offseason very low on Jalen Waddle because his high leverage usage last year was putrid. It was bad, dude. Like, legitimately, like, okay, so was he getting deep targets? No. Like, everything high leverage usage wise went all to Tyreek Hill last year. Jalen Waddle struggled in such a condensed offense. And it's like, dude, like, how did he not do better with only Tyreek Hill? But it's like McDaniel funneled everything through Tyreek Hill. And Jalen Waddle last year, and this might surprise people, but this is why I was lower on him entering the year. Um, Last year, he was outside the top 54 wide receivers in deep targets and red zone targets. While he finished as the wide receiver 21, he was the wide receiver 27 in expected fantasy points per game. So this is all to say, and I know I sound like I'm making a anti-Waddle case. That is where I was going into this year. Now, I've been meaning to tune up my ranks, and I'm glad you pointed out Waddle here because actually we did a show earlier today for Fantasy Pros, and we were mentioning Waddle and stuff, and I've really come around on Waddle in the last few weeks. A lot of this has been Erickson like beating some of the stuff in my head, and I'm like his usage was so bad last year, but the way that I've thought through this Miami offense, and this is how we go through the offseason, Kev. It's like how you enter and the numbers you're looking at, and then you're trying to project it forward into 2024, and you're saying, okay, what happened last year and what can happen this year? And I have come around on Waddle. So like live right now, I have updated him to wide receiver 16. And the way that I and the case against Waddle, I just made it. It's not hard to make. It's pretty easy to make. The reason I'm coming around on Waddle is because yes, this offense is still incredibly consolidated. Like it is Tyreek Hill, it is Jalen Waddle, and it's a bunch of other bit players. It's Jonnu Smith. He's going to have his moments, and Odell Beckham Jr., who couldn't even play a full time snap role last year. So who cares? But when you look at Jalen Waddle, it's like, and the context of this offense, it's like, do we really think we're going to get what 25, 20, 30 touchdowns out of this damn backfield this year? Like I think the touchdowns are going to go back to the passing attack to an extent. And I think if you're looking at okay, who would be the primary beneficiary of this if the touchdowns that went straight through, like, dude, Raheem Mostert scored how many touchdowns last year? Devon Achane just scored how many freaking touchdowns last year? If those touchdowns, instead of going all through the running backs last year, if those go back to the passing attack, who is the biggest beneficiary that did not get high leverage usage last year? Well, it's Jalen Waddle. So yeah, I mean, I bumped him up live on the show right now, and I've been meaning to do this. Is I bumped him up from low end wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 16, and I think the case for Jalen Waddle starts anywhere from low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 to where you have him like wide receiver 13, Kev. So I'm with you on this one. Not to back off or sound like I'm flipping my script, but like legitimately I have come around on Waddle the last few weeks just as I've worked through this offense and thought about it and been like, look, like his insane efficiency is still real. He's still freaking awesome at football. If those change and the touchdown variance, because dude, touchdowns are so damn fluky, all that shit year to year. If that gravitates more back to the passing attack, Waddle is the guy that probably stands to get the biggest bump.
Yeah, it's been wild to me that they haven't utilized him as a pass catcher or as a deep threat. Like they just never have. Like I
No,
really
it
don't
was like
understand
all Tyreek Hill, and then McDaniel was like, "Well, I guess we don't have anybody else." But I think, and this is the other part about that is we saw Miami get burned by that last year. Like McDaniel ran so much of the damn offense through Tyreek Hill that it was like, well, if Tyreek Hill's not going off every single freaking week, or if he's hurt, or if he's less than 100%, Miami's screwed. Like they were screwed last year. It was like, take Tyreek Hill out, or Tyreek Hill doesn't have a monster game, then what is Miami doing on a weekly basis? And it's like, but you've seen what Miami did this offseason. They brought in better tertiary weapons than what they had. Like, is Jonnu amazing? No. Is he a shit ton better than Durham Smythe? Yes. Is Odell Beckham amazing at this part of his career? No. Is he better than freaking Cedric Wilson? Uh-huh. So they also added other parts of this pieces of this offense to say, like, look, we can't just run everything through Tyreek Hill this year. We're gonna have to count on some other guys.
Yeah, like Malik Washington.
Oh man, that's so sad. Like I love Malik. Like so, you want a little side tangent Malik Washington story? I was told through the ether through people that the reason he fell in the NFL draft, because that was one of the most confounding things to me. I'm like, this kid's good. Why is he falling this much? I was told that it was medical concerns. Now I was not given any more details outside of that, and we haven't heard any of that. So I'm not trying to break news that doesn't exist, but that's what I was told by people that are in the know, that there were medical concerns about Malik Washington, and that's why he fell in the NFL draft.
Yeah, that was wild too because like when you watch him, like he was a lot of fun to watch. Just
God,
super
he's so
explosive,
good. He's
and
really good,
his year
dude.
last year was phenomenal.
Yeah, he was really good.
When you finally get him out of the Northwestern offense, yeah, it's weird what happens.
Crazy, right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
get all these guys out of like putrid ass offenses with bad quarterbacks. What can they do?
Yeah. So okay. So I wanted to talk to you about Jaden Reed versus Christian Watson. I know you still
Oh,
love you haven't passed on your love of Christian Watson yet, which
nope, I haven't.
I still think there's a world where Christian Watson can be really good. It's
Yes,
just I mean,
I
I've
do.
heard all of the we had his what was it, soft tissues hamstrings were off balance or whatever it was. So
Yeah.
now I don't know. They sent him to a place to get some stuff done. We'll see. It's very similar, I guess, what Alvin Kamara had done. Alvin Kamara was dealing with a lot of soft tissue injuries, and they fixed him. So I think there's definitely a world where Christian Watson can finally have a breakout year, right?
Yep.
But Jaden Reed, I also think, is a phenomenal wide receiver, and their
Okay.
numbers were very similar. I know there was at some points I think there was a little bit that was he was Christian Watson was just slightly higher by like a percent or two, but
Mm,
I like Jaden Reed a lot. I think Jaden Reed really flashed last year, kind of what his upside was, especially as a rookie. I thought he was phenomenal last year. So I do really like I like Jaden Reed. I don't think there is. I think Jaden Reed can be somewhat like a Debo Samuel light. Like I think he
yeah,
has the
He's
ability.
Dairy Belt Debo Samuel is what I called him in the primer all last year.
So
So yes, I'm still massively in on Christian Watson. And you want to talk about like, process and numbers and things like that. That all comes back to all of that. And I know you've probably heard this spiel, Kev. Anybody that's listened to the Fantasy Pro show has probably already heard this spiel. We actually talked about this. I think this episode we recorded today should be live tomorrow or by Monday on YouTube and the podcast feed. But so everybody, bear with me if you've already heard this. But the reason I'm still high on Christian Watson is because he's still the wide receiver one of this team. And people might hate me saying that, but
you
I'm
sure
just
it's not
telling you,
Dontavian Wicks?
dude, people are so crazy about Dontavian Wicks. Like, look, like I get all the efficiency metrics. People are going to be really pissed off when they draft a shit ton of Dontavian Wicks and he's not even a starter next year because look, this is not me. I'm not telling you Romeo Dobbs is amazing, but he's started over Dontavian Wicks the entire year.
He's not going anywhere.
I don't know what's changing about that in the year 2024. Like, their three wide receiver set is going to be Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Romeo Dobbs. People can hate it all they want to, but unless you're projecting that Wicks takes a starting role from Romeo Dobbs, he's not going to be a starter. So I don't know why everybody, like, I love the efficiency metrics too, but I can't draft a guy where he's going in certain drafts to be over the moon for Dontavian Wicks when he's not even going to crack the damn starting lineup. But with Watson, he still is the Green Bay Packers wide receiver one. When he was on the field and he was playing a full-time role last year, and I just don't think people understand this. In weeks 5 through 13 last year, Christian Watson still led every Packers wide receiver, Jaden Reed included, in target share, air yard share, yards per route run, end zone targets. I'm going to keep going, Kev. First read share and first downs per route run. So every single freaking metric we should give a shit about with wide receivers, Christian Watson was the number one guy in every single one of those metrics when he was playing on the field. And mind you, at less than full percent, at less than 100%. So he was less than 100%, and he was still the clear wide receiver one on that team by every damn metric. And now we get an injury discount for him. So, like, this is not me hating Jaden Reed, but, like, I have a hard time being bullish on a player, Kev, that, like, he's not even playing a full-time role, man. Like, he played 57% of the snaps last year. He's their slot wide receiver. Like, even if we want to talk about, okay, after Christian Watson went out, 69%, 42, 31, 62. And I understand injuries also played a role in some of that, okay? But you're also looking at a player that we can name on one hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 3 games he played over 70% of the snaps last year. So, like, Green Bay is not changing what they do. They're going to run a lot of 21 personnel. They're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. That's going to limit the number of 11 personnel plays that they run. And unless Jaden Reed can become a boundary wide receiver in that depth chart, which I don't see happening because he's not going to bump Watson out. Romeo Dobbs is not going to the slot. And even if people hate Dobbs, well, all the Dontavian Wicks hive, he'll play the outside. Reed's going to play the slot. And that's going to cap his snap share. And unless he does any one of those other things, and we can't even talk about, like, dude, like, he was also the wide receiver 43 in expected fantasy points per game. He ran super hot on freaking touchdowns. He had 10 total touchdowns. That was fifth amongst all wide receivers. He, like, all of this stuff just points me to Jaden Reed ran super hot last year, and we're over the moon for a guy that's not even going to be a full-time player and wasn't even the team's wide receiver one when everybody was freaking healthy.
So push back a little bit. So,
Bring it. I want to hear
so
it.
you mentioned how players can't develop and get better
Okay.
over the off.
Mhm.
Like I feel like this year 1 to year 2 jump is going to be big for for Jaden Reed. I think he can play
Mhm.
outside as well as inside. I don't think
But
he's
do you think
limited.
they put him outside? That's my biggest
I think they
question.
move him all around the formation. I think that he
Okay.
is a player that they're going to try to get into his hands. They're going to scheme him touches because he is a super explosive athlete once you get the ball in his hands.
So last year he only played 23% of his snaps out wide. Where do you put that share this year?
I think that it is still tougher because there is so many other options there. Because you
Yeah.
still do have Romeo Dobbs, you still have Christian Watson, and Dontavian Wicks. Like there's a lot of different options here within this offense.
Three
But
games. 3 games only with 40% or higher of his snaps out wide.
right, but
Just saying.
if you look at the entire season and not just a small sample size,
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Reed received the first read target share was at 20%. It was right there, right behind Christian Watson. Christian Watson was still first with 21.4%, just a 1.4% difference
Mm-hmm.
there on that. In terms of um, first down per route run rates, Jaden Reed was ahead of Christian Watson. He was number 1 on the team in that department. So in terms of just the full season, not just yes, I'll admit, Christian Watson last year had 15 in zone targets. Um, Jaden Reed had 9, and Romeo Dobbs had 16 of those as well. So he was actually third on the team in end zone targets was Jaden Reed. But I think Jaden Reed is a phenomenal wide receiver. I think he is a very good
Oh,
wide
I
receiver.
think he's really damn talented. I just think the system is going to cap him, is what I think too.
So,
That's my biggest worry on
but
him.
you also have to hope. Now, the thing I'll say is easier with Christian Watson, and I don't mind taking Christian Watson. And if you want to take a shot on him because he's the cheaper option of the two,
Mm-hmm.
because he is cheaper than Jaden Reed, that he is not as expensive as he was last year. So, like, you can get him a little bit later. The investment isn't as big. So, if he stays kind of where he's going in like the 8th, 9th round, I have no problem with taking a shot on Christian Watson there because the
The
upside I do think is still there for him. Like the physical
Mhm.
tools, the talent that he has there, I think is still there.
Yeah.
But the dude just has not been able to stay healthy, and
The
that concerns me.
the other thing I'll say too is that I think that, and we all talk about how Jordan Love, like, I don't know where you sit on Jordan Love. We haven't talked about him, but like, I think Jordan Love is going to have another really damn good season. I think that what he did over the back half of the season was real. I think it's absolutely real. The other part about all of this is that Christian Watson was also used in a field stretching role last year. I think that some of that, we could talk about hamstrings. Are you going to be running as many short patterns, digs, curls, parts where you have to gear down and come back to the quarterback when your hammies are bothering you? Probably not. You know what I mean? And I know maybe I'm getting too much into the weeds in narrative street here, and I'm not doing that to try to, like, again, make the pro case of Christian Watson, but again, trying to sift through how last season played out. The other thing we have to talk about here, Kev, is when Christian Watson was actually quote unquote healthy, Jordan Love was not playing really damn good football. Like, that switch didn't come on for him until week 12. And then he went on that monstrous run where he was playing like elite football. And so, okay, well, Christian Watson went out in week 13. So, like, what would Christian Watson have done down the back half of the season? Like, if we had seen a healthy Christian Watson in an offense where Jordan Love was playing like just a stone cold baller, because the majority of the season when we saw Watson on the field, Jordan Love was having a lot of ups and downs and was struggling in a lot of different metrics. So that's the other thing I want to point out here is that, like, Jaden Reed was a big beneficiary for being healthy at the right time down the back half of the season while Jordan Love was playing out of his freaking mind. What if Watson would have also been healthy? I think he would have enjoyed really damn good production too. But unfortunately, he was only healthy for the beginning of the season when Love was like going through a lot of growing pains and hadn't figured it out yet. Like the light hadn't come on yet.
Yeah, like I said, I don't mind taking shots on Christian Watson, and if you can get him later, which seems like that's where he's going to go, unless he just gets really shot up, in terms of what
He's
once.
climbing an ADP and part of that is because, I don't think I move the needle with ADP, so I'm not even going to say that's me, but I know a lot of people have been out there talking about Christian Watson. Just the more that like people have dug into the numbers, I'm looking at where he's at. I know he's in the 80s. He was in like the mid to late 80s. Like he was right around like 80, and I'm doing this off the top of my head. Like he was in the like 85 to 88 at 90 range. He has climbed all the way up to 78. So he is catching some steam. Like he's up to wide receiver 46. And again, I'm using underdog ADP. We know how wide receiver centric that is and stuff, but I do think that people are kind of coming around on Christian Watson, but at a wide receiver 4 price tag, shit, I'm all in.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I don't mind him. I haven't necessarily completely given up hope on Christian Watson, but it's worrisome, especially when it's repetitive soft tissue injuries. It's not just like random. So like Keenan Allen, we bring up,
Mhm.
but like Keenan Allen had like multiple different things. It wasn't just like soft tissue
Oh,
injury.
he had like a lacerated kidney and a bunch of other random freak
Yeah,
freak injuries too. So
yeah. So that's my concern with Christian Watson. But
mhm. Yep.
yeah. Other than that, I think that for the most part, all the wide receivers that I really wanted to what Helmet Pros talked about everybody else. So um yeah.
I'm kind of curious. One guy I did want to bring up with you. Okay, where are you at on the KC wide receivers? Like, who do you think leads the room that year? Are you super high on Hollywood? Are you super high on Worthy? Like, how do you see that kind of like shifting out? Because it's Houston, it's KC, and it's Chicago, where I'm just kind of like, ugh, fuck. Like, where are the targets gonna go, man?
Yeah, so I lean Marquise Brown.
Okay.
It feels kind of like a not necessarily role wise, but like a Juju Smith Schuster type thing. They bring him on a 1 year deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's gonna like with we even saw it last year with Rasheed Rice. I don't think
You think they
Xavier
ease him
Worthy
in?
is good. Yes, I think he's gonna he's it, but
Okay.
that's what Andy Reid does. Like this
Yeah,
system is a
I could say it.
very complex, hard system to learn.
Yeah.
And you have to gain the trust of Patrick Mahomes because one, you have to be able to run around and you can't just stop in your routes, just run your route. Like you have to learn to just
Yep.
continue to play and do backyard football stuff because that's what he does. And if he doesn't trust you, you're not going to be on the field. And the same thing with
Mhm.
Andy Reid. And so I think it's going to take some time. I think they'll manufacture some touches for him to get the ball in his hands, use some of his explosion. But I don't think it's going to be a right out the gate thing. And so even if Rasheed Rice is healthy, I think Marquise Brown brings a different element. And honestly, if you look at his catchable target rate, Hollywood Browns, it's always been terrible because one, obviously he sees a lot of the deep targets within his offenses that he's on. But I mean, you have like Lamar Jackson, who's never been necessarily a great deep ball passer. That's something he's
Mhm.
always sort of struggled with. And then last year, but even last year for Marquise Brown, I mean, he didn't have Kyler Murray until the second half of the season. Well, once he finally came back from his injury, so he's never really had a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes to truly
Mhm.
unlock him. And so I'm the highest on Marquise Brown. I think he is the safest to bet it on um, when it comes to that because I think his offense is going to change a lot. And what worries me about a Rasheed Rice is Rasheed Rice was like your volume back last year, right?
Yeah.
They had nobody else to throw the ball to. And so they just schemed him in space over and over and over and hit him
Yep.
on slants and crossers and all these things over and just asked them, okay, we're gonna hit you in space and let you do your thing and let
Yep.
you pick up first down and stuff like that. And they did the same thing with Travis Kelsey because that's all they had. They just had to dink and dunk their way down the field. And when you have Patrick Mahomes, you obviously do that. This offense, from everything they talk about, is going to change. They are going to try to push the ball down the field. They wanted speed. That's why they brought in everybody they did. And so I think some of that connection, and I still think you can use Marquise Brown on a lot of those things. You don't necessarily have to. He's not just a deep threat. So I think my safest bet would be on a Marquise Brown, especially at cost. Like I have Marquise Brown inside my top 30 right
Mm.
now. I think he's a very good bet to be that guy.
I
On
probably
the
need to
flip
move
side
him
of that,
up.
the other one, you brought up the Texans. One, I love Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell is
Yeah, I love
phenomenal.
Tank.
I think Tank Dell. I think it was a bad move. I didn't think they needed to bring in Stephon Diggs at all. They don't
No,
need
I
Stephon
agree.
Diggs. I think he is going to be a problem because he is a diva. There's a reason he's been on multiple different teams, and
Hmm.
teams have continually moved on from him. But I also think Nico Collins is for real. Like I don't think Nico Collins is
I do too, man. That's we had a show we were talking about who would you rather at ADP today on Fantasy Pros, and I was like, I just I think Nico Collins showed some true like alpha level shit last year. Like, and it was like when the entire offense died around him, like it was just him. He was bawling out of his freaking mind. And so it's like we've seen a guy like that like turn into an alpha when everybody else was injured and hurt. That shows you the type of ceiling he has. And it's like, what if he just takes a step and he's that dude for an entire season? And Stroud is just like, I'm freaking zeroing in on Nico Collins. And look, Diggs and Dell, when y'all are open, I'll hit you, but it is Nico time, baby. Like I firmly agree with that.
would it surprise anybody if halfway through the year they just cut Stephon Diggs? Because
I
he has
mean, if
no
he
guaranteed money past this year. So like he is like they owe him nothing past this year. I think it's very
it's
unlikely.
it's highly unlikely.
But
I
his
mean, but
attitude and the way that he goes about things, and he throws a fit and everything else, I don't
yeah.
think D'Amico Ryans would put up with it. And
I've got
maybe,
Tank Dell ranked over Stephon Diggs in my ranks.
well, I
So
think he should be
I'm
anyway
with you.
because I think
Oh
Stephon
yeah,
Diggs is kind of
agreed.
toast anyway. I
Yeah,
don't see it
agreed.
like he has fallen off. He is not the
Yep,
same guy that he used to be, and
agreed.
I 100% think Tank Dell is a very very good wide receiver. Them two are very similar on him and Nico Collins. We're kind
Mhm.
of I know at times it was Tank Dell that was had a slightly higher target share and it was a slightly little bit better, but
Yep.
I'm out on I will have zero zilch Stephon Diggs in
Yeah.
terms of drafting. I'm like I'm not I want no part of that.
No, I'm with you on that. Like, I'm actually like, as we're talking about this, I'm like, I'm kind of reordering some of our ranks and increasing a little bit of that divide between Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. Like, I agree with you, man. Like, I think Tank Dell, I think is really damn good. I said to somebody in the Fantasy Pros Discord earlier today, I was like, Tank Dell is just basically better T.Y. Hilton. And I know that, like, okay, T.Y. Hilton had a fantastic career. I still think I stand by it, man. I think Tank Dell's just really damn good.
I 100% agree. So like this is because like this situation, the Bear situation, I think is really tough. I am more concerned with Keenan Allen than anybody in that offense, and
Same.
it's
Same.
not just his age; it's the way he is this route technician and everything else. And like, I don't know, can he coexist in a Caleb Williams offense where he is scrambling around doing the Patrick Mahomes thing?
Yep.
Because you have to just continue to move. Like you
Yep.
can't just run your route and think that's going to be good enough. Like as we've learned with Patrick Mahomes, and he very much brings that type of quarterback play where he is going to extend plays. He's going to be running around. Like I don't know if that necessarily works in that offense with him. I don't know if he's a good fit for this type of offense that Caleb Williams wants to play. And the worst thing you can do as an offensive coordinator is try to make your player fit into your scheme. It should be the other way around. Make your scheme fit with your player. I think that's the best way to do it. I think that's the best way his skill set is. And we know DJ Moore is still really good. And then Roma Dunzi is not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
like Roma Dunzi is going to be a big threat within this offense. So I am more concerned with Keenan Allen than I am. Like I would rather either if I was going to take one, I still think this would be a situation where maybe just take the cheapest one and you just take Roma
Yep.
Dunzi. And over the second half of the season, where as he gets more and more,
Mhm.
intertwined within this offense, that he becomes the wide receiver one of the team.
I I can't agree with that statement anymore, man. Like, I said the same thing on our show today. I was like, at cost, I want Rome. Even not at cost, like just looking at all their ADPs and stuff like that. Like, I think like Rome is the best bet to make out of that entire room, because I agree with everything you said about Keenan Allen, and like the thing about it, and like there are positives to believe that Chicago can outpace. Like if you look at what Shane Waldron's done over the last few years, can the passing rate surprise us? Sure. There's a path for that. But the most agree, and this is another reason why I'm so damn high on Jackson Smith and Jigba this year, is because we all saw what Shane Waldron did last year in Seattle, and you took a guy. Now tell me if this sounds anything like Keenan Allen to you, Kev. A player where we were worried, like, okay, how athletic is he? Okay, probably, passes the benchmarks. He's good, maybe not a great athlete. But where he wins is with his route running and his ability to separate, and he can draw targets. And Shane Waldron took a player like that, and I'm describing Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he said, I'm going to neuter you into being a screen merchant. I'm going to turn you into Malachi Corley. That's what we're going to turn you into. Like, Jackson Smith and Jigba had the 7th highest screen rate amongst all wide receivers last year. Even playing the role that he did last year, he had the 7th most screen targets. So, like, you're telling me that you did that to Jackson Smith and Jigba? Who does that fit in this offense? It's Keenan Allen. And does it sound asinine? Does it sound crazy? Does it sound insane to turn a player like Keenan Allen into a screen merchant, a low A dot guy? Yeah, but I just saw a coordinator do it with Jackson Smith and Jigba last year. To say that he won't do it with Keenan Allen, I cannot definitively say that. So in Chicago, I'm firmly with you, man. Like, the bet that I'm making, and he's one of most highest drafted players right now currently in best ball, is Rome Odunze. Like, the talent is real. And even if you want to talk about roles and archetypes and things like that, it's like Rome and JSN are not the same type of wide receiver. The way that you're going to use the two of them is not the same. Like, Rome's not going to play the slot. Rome is not going to be a low A dot kind of guy. Like, they're not going to do that. And with Rome, you also have the contingent upside. It's like we're making the same bet that, like, in a sense that we made previous years and everybody talked about the contingent upside with T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd. And if one of those wide receivers gets hurt, or shit, man, what if Keenan Allen finally hits the age cliff? Like, per his numbers last year, do I think that that's going to happen in 2024? No. But what if I'm wrong? Or what if one of these guys gets hurt? Rome Odunze has that type of contingent upside and the talent to capitalize on it. So at cost, he's the cheapest guy out of this. Yeah, like, I'm going to be drafting a lot of Rome Odunze this year. It's going to happen. Like, I don't think it's insane either. If I think you can make a case in rankings that Rome Odunze should be. I'm not saying that I have it in this way in my ranks. But if somebody wants to make a case to me that Rome Odunze should be drafted before Keenan Allen or ranked above him, I really can't push back that much, man.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention that Keenan Allen is 32 years old, and I mean, there's a
Yep.
lot of stuff here. And I'm not saying that I think he's going to fall off a cliff or anything like either.
No,
But you
I'm
also
not
have to
saying that
remember,
either. But
the thing you have
looking
to
at how
remember
the
with him is that he was the only guy there last year. Like that,
yeah,
like people are looking at him like, oh, look how phenomenal he was, and like, but he was also very much a possession wide receiver. Like, and
yeah,
like he needed that volume. He
yep,
needed that those 150 targets to be able to have his. He had 108 receptions, 1,200 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns.
mm-hmm.
He's not going to have anywhere close to 100 catches this year. It's not going to happen.
No,
Like
no way in
I don't
hell,
with DJ
no way in
Moore
hell.
and with Roma Dizzy, it's not going to be anywhere close to that. So I can't. I just don't love him at his cost. And like I said, I don't know how great of a fit he is with the style of play that Caleb Williams has. And he's 32 years old. This is basically a 1 year deal for him, and he'll be out the door. But he's
Yep.
also has dealt with some stuff here. Last year he dealt with multiple different
I mean,
things,
last year he was healthy, but if we want to go even back to the year before, you know what I mean? Like,
hamstring
hamstring
strain.
strain, and he was out for 7 games. Like, mm, who knows? Who knows, man?
Yeah. So again, I'm not saying he's going to fall off a cliff. I would rather take the cheaper one than take Keenan Allen at what his cost is probably going to be this year.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
So
I
I
just don't
just
think we're fully baking in. I don't think we're fully baking in the contingent upside that Roma Dunze has too, and just based off of like how freaking good he is, man. Like he's so stinking good, man. It's like it.
and each of
It's
the last
like
2 years he's missed time. I mean, he played 13 games last year and he played 10 games in 2022. So
like
he's definitely going to miss time.
am I telling you that Rome is okay? Well, let's just rewind this for a second, okay? Jamar Chase's rookie season, like we all thought, like okay, Jamar Chase is freaking awesome. He's amazing. Nobody had a problem being super high on him going into his rookie season. Did any of us, Kev, think that Jamar Chase was going to be that much distanced immediately on Cincinnati's roster in his rookie season above T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd? No. Did it still happen because he was that good and he was an elite alpha? Yes. I'm just saying it's
I
not
wonder
that
how
I'm
people would
not
view it if it was Marvin Harrison that got drafted to them
the,
instead of
that's a damn
instead
good
of
point. But that's kind of what I'm talking about here. It's like Jamar Chase entered the Cincinnati passing attack with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd already there, okay? Very good players at those respective points of their career. And nobody said Jamar Chase is going to be the automatic alpha. In his rookie season, he's going to be the wide receiver 5 in fantasy points per game. But he did it. And I'm not saying that Rome does that. But there is a reality. There is a reality where Roma Dunze enters that offense and could be their number one wide receiver in year one. And I don't think that anybody is talking about that part of the range of outcomes for this offense. And it could happen, dude.
yeah, I don't think it's crazy at all. I mean, we all, Roma Dunzi, it was to me, it was the three. It was Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, and Narduzzi, and there
Yep.
wasn't a lot splitting a lot of them. Like you could make arguments
Oh,
for each one of the three as being.
yep.
I still think at the end of the day you go Marvin Harrison, but I think Neighbors and Narduzzi, there was a lot
Oh, dude,
of
Neighbors was my wide receiver one, and I think you could have made a case for any one of those guys as your wide receiver one.
yeah.
I don't think they would have been clickbait. I don't think it would have been any of that kind of shit. Like all three of those guys were alpha elite level talents. So like really it was just like they're in their own tier and you order them however the hell you want. I don't give a shit because all three of those guys are awesome.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. So, um, yeah, I mean, Marvin Harrison, I have him ranked inside my top 10, which so does everybody. But I feel like you have to. Tremendous spot. Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is
Yep.
one of my favorite quarterbacks to draft
Yep.
all this year. I'm
Same.
going to have so much Kyler.
I got
Uh,
Marv at wide receiver 9. So I mean
yeah.
we're with consensus. But I mean like you know what I mean? Like I just feel that like when we try to figure out these offenses, we kind of get lost in the weeds and we forget that the similar situation that Rome is entering it with Chicago. It's like we have seen rookie wide receivers enter situations like this before and just declare themselves as being the damn dude from day one. Like but we all kind of forget about that. We say, "Oh, well, that was because it was Jamar Chase," you know. Oh yeah, but some of you idiots were out there talking about how he can't catch balls in practice and shit like that, and we're drafting him too high as a wide receiver 2 in his rookie season and stuff like that. But then it's like after he goes out and he does it, then it's all this like, "Well, I mean, come on, it's Jamar Chase. How could you not have seen that?" And it's like, really? Because y'all weren't saying that shit in draft season. I kind of remember that didn't happen. Nobody was out there saying he was a top 5 wide receiver. So we got to remember like what has happened in some of these years previously and say, okay, there's so much we're going to get right. And there's so much that when we flip the cards over after the season, we're going to say, oh, damn, man, like I didn't see that happening, but it happened.
Yeah, for sure. I have no problem with taking him at that high. Like I have no reservations about it whatsoever. I mean, he landed in a tremendous spot. That was kind of the spot everybody wanted him to go to, and he landed there. So Cardinals did the right thing instead of trading down and missing out on somebody like that. So I have no problem.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, we put 2 hours. That was like the where we had to hit. We had to hit 2 hours. It's never a show with me and you. And I know Cody's like, I am happy I was not here for this.
Yeah.
But
Cody's like, I don't want any part of that. I got to deliver mail in the morning. Y'all shut up.
yeah. So, anyways, I think we can wrap it up. I don't really have anybody else to talk about. We pretty much went through.
Mm.
Um, I do think maybe like in like August, if we have time, maybe we should try to revisit and
Oh, yeah. Just say when. You know,
yeah,
I'll hop
and
on.
we'll revisit some of this, see where kind of we're at on some of these guys, and
Hmm.
and see what's changed because there's a lot that's going to change between
Oh,
now.
yeah. When training
Yeah,
camps come out, and then we get all the stuff about how depth charts and usage, and then we get so much more information as we kind of go through the process. And once we get more information, that's why everybody's talking about like when the the more information we have, the better best ball teams we're going to draft, how rankings are going to shift right now. So without training camps, we're still kind of projecting, and a lot of that's going to change, dude. I absolutely agree.
yeah. So that being said, you follow Debro over at Fantasy Pros. They need no introduction. They're like the king of the fantasy football community. But you do excellent work over there. I try to tune in anytime you do anything over there. It's always a good time. But there is times that I'm like, what?
Well, I do it just for you, Kev. I do it to see how many veins I can get to pop out of your forehead when you're driving to work.
Yeah.
Hopefully, one days you don't have a freaking coronary listening to the show. I don't want that
Well,
for you. I don't want that
or
at
I'll
all.
figure out a way to like tap in to your guys' feed and jump on.
You should,
Wait a
man.
minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
dude. No, I appreciate it, buddy. Much love to TFA and everything you do with you, Cody, Maddie, Brian, everybody. I mean, so much love for this brand, so much love for y'all, dude. I mean, this is old school. We have talked ball for years and years and years. Um, Before I ever got a job in this industry, before anybody ever gave a shit. A lot of people still don't, but before Fantasy Pros, before all that stuff, man. So much love all the time, man. To everything you're doing, everything that y'all do at TFA, all support, always, dude, forever.
and we appreciate that, and tell Matty he'll fuck himself for not meeting up with you this again. So I
Clip
would
that and
not.
send it to him.
Yeah,
Clip
I'm
it.
going to. I'm gonna clip this and I'm gonna send it to Maddie and be like, "You sorry sob. Yeah, you couldn't have spared an hour of your time go have some lunch somewhere or whatever." So I'll be sure to
Maddie,
let him
he
know.
said it. He said it. Wait, shit. But yeah, he said it, not me. He said it.
Yeah, that's messed up. So, anyways, all right. Appreciate everybody. We'll be back here. We got a lot more content. I've been planning a lot of content. Actually, I had some videos that I actually recorded, and then once we decided we were going to do this, I was like, oh, screw it. I'll just clip this up because there'll be a lot of good conversation there instead of me doing solo stuff. So I got a lot of content coming out. We'll do a lot of player profiles, a lot of mock draft, everything. Fantasy football season's actually officially here. Redraft season. June is really the kind of kickoff point to it all. So it's only going to get crazier and crazier as we go on with everything else. And training camp starts next month. So keep it locked in here. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Be sure to follow Debro over at Fantasy Pros as well. You follow him on X, Twitter. What is it? Debro underscore FFB, I think is what it
Mm-hmm.
is. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
off the top of my head. So follow him over there. Scorching hot takes. You're going to see a lot of people upset in the comments, but that's how you know it's good because you don't want to follow people that are just following everybody else. That is the stone cold worst. Then you end up drafting a lot of the bums like Mike Davis and stuff like that because everybody gets hyped on that
Mm-hmm.
and follows the herd mentality. So the guy, the Puka Nakua whisperer right here, who brought you, yeah, he won people a lot of leagues. So have a good weekend. Have a good rest of the week. We'll see everybody very soon. A lot of content coming. Have a good night. Bye.